Chapter 504. Chu Wuming left. Just as he walked out of the courtyard, Chu Wuck's laughter came from within. Ha! Third brother, big brother will leave first. Ha ha! Just as Chu Wuming said, he gave the two of them the most dignified way to die. Chu Wuck knew that he didn't have a second choice. Hearing Chu Wuming's laughter outside the courtyard, two streams of tears flowed down from his eyes. Boil beans to make soup, soak beans to make juice. Soak beans in the pot, sob beans in the pot. They were born from the same roots. Why should they kill each other so quickly? Although the three brothers had always been fighting to the death for the position of crown prince and wanted to completely eliminate each other, until now, when the dust had settled, Chu Wuming's heart was still uncontrollably touched when facing his brother's death. No matter what happened in the past, no matter what grudges they had, the three of them were still brothers. Chu Wuck's words kept ringing in Chu Wuming's ears. Chu Wuming raised his head to look at the horizon, trying his best not to let himself cry out loud. Chu Wuming murmured softly, "If it weren't for the fact that I was born in the imperial family, why would I be so heartless? But what can I do?" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Wuming left in loneliness. At the same time, in the courtyard, Chu Wuck raised a pot of poison wine and drank it all in one gulp. He then spat out a mouthful of blood and died on the spot. Seeing Chu Wuck leave first, Chu Wushuang, who was at the side, walked over to Chu Wuck's corpse as if she had lost her soul. Hugging Chu Wuck's corpse, Chu Wushuang was expressionless. After that, she lifted the other pot of poison wine and drank it in one gulp. Chu Wuming had already returned to his crown prince Eastern Palace, which had now become his temporary residence. At this moment, Chu Wuming was drinking alone in the courtyard. Zhao Feng quickly walked over and bowed respectfully to Chu Wuming. "Your Highness, the first prince and second prince." He originally wanted to tell Chu Wuming that Chu Wuck and Chu Wushuang had already died, but before Zhao Feng could finish, Chu Wuming waved his hand helplessly and interrupted him. "I know. First Prince Chu Wushuang will be named King Nanyang, and second Prince Chu Wushuang will be named King Beihe. They will be buried in the imperial tombs." "Understood," Zhao Feng respectfully replied after hearing Chu Wuming's words. "That's right, go invite brother Xiaochen over," Chu Wuming said. After personally killing his two brothers, Chu Wuming was extremely annoyed and wanted a drink. At this moment, the only person who could drink with Chu Wuming was Xiaochen. Xiaochen, who had received Chu Wuming's invitation, soon arrived at the Crown Prince Eastern Palace. Ever since Chu Wuming came to power, although Xiaochen hadn't received any rewards, everyone knew that Chu Wuming still treated Xiaochen as a friend and brother. Even though Chu Wuming was in power, he was still wary of Xiaochen. This was because Chu Wuming knew that with Xiaochen's talent and strength, a measly moonless empire was nothing in his eyes. Xiaochen's world was the vast world outside the Pil Sun County. In the entire moonless empire, only Xiaochen could enter and leave the imperial palace as he pleased. They soon arrived at the Crown Prince Eastern Palace. Seeing Xiaochen, Chu Wuming revealed a forced smile and personally pulled Xiaochen's hand to the pavilion in the courtyard. In the pavilion, Wu Yin also bowed respectfully when she saw Xiaochen. "Young Master Xiaochen." Now that Chu Wuming was already the crown prince, Wu Yin naturally became the crown princess. Her status could be said to be unattainable. At the same time, the Wu clan also became the most popular clan in the entire moonless empire from a small clan. However, even so, Wu Yin still didn't dare to be impudent in front of Xiaochen. She was a smart woman and knew that the reason why Chu Wuming could be where he was today was all because of Xiaochen. Otherwise, Chu Wuming's fate would have been Chu Wuck and Chu Wushuang today. He nodded slightly at Wu Yun and then walked to the table with Chu Wuming. The two of them sat opposite each other, and Wu Yun personally poured wine for them. Xiaochen had already guessed why Chu Wuming called him over. Knowing that Chu Wuming was depressed, Xiaochen didn't say anything and drank with Chu Wuming. After 3 rounds of drinking, perhaps because of his mood, Chu Wuming didn't use his spiritual energy to dissolve the alcohol in his body. Thus, at this moment, Chu Wuming was already a little tipsy. His eyes were blurred as he looked at Xiao Chun and spoke incoherently. Brother Xiao, do you think I'm too cold-blooded? How could you kill your own brother? Chu Wuming didn't feel good about personally executing two of his brothers. Upon hearing his words, Xiao Chun said indifferently, Do you regret it, Your Highness? Regret it? Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chu Wuming asked himself this question. After pondering for a moment, Chu Wuming shook his head and replied, I don't regret it. I didn't choose. I didn't choose. You don't regret your decision. Upon hearing his words, Xiao Chun continued, Since you don't regret it, why do you have to do this, Your Majesty? As a king, there are many things that you don't want to do, but you have to do them. This is the helplessness of a king. Xiao Chun didn't know how to console Chu Wuming because he hadn't experienced this before. That night, Xiao Chun and Chu Wuming drank the entire night in the Crown Prince's Easter Palace. Crown Prince Chu Wuming was completely drunk and bawling his eyes out. He didn't seem like a crown prince at all. Originally, he thought that he could mercilessly kill Chu Wuming and Chu Wuming who wanted to kill him. However, when it was time to actually take action, Chu Wuming realized that his heart actually hurt so much. No matter how much he hated Chu Wuk and Chu Wuyue, the kinship of blood was thicker than water. It was easy to say that he wanted to kill his own brothers. However, if he really wanted to do it, that feeling was heart-wrenching. In the end, Chu Wuming was supported back to his bedroom by Wu Yun, while Xiao Chun returned to the heavenly stellar residence alone. Perhaps he was infected by Chu Wuming. On the way back, Xiao Chun inexplicably imagined that if he were to encounter such a situation, would he end up like Chu Wuming? After all, the Xiao clan was also a large clan. It wasn't hard to imagine that if they successfully returned to the heavenly stellar continent in the future, the Xiao clan would become one of the top clans, even if it wasn't the largest clan in the heavenly stellar continent. In that case, would the Xiao clan end up like the Wuyue Empire today? In order to fight for the position of patriarch, would the Xiao clan's disciples kill each other? Without an answer, Xiao Chun didn't know if the Xiao clan would end up like that. With his imagination running wild, Xiao Chun returned to the heavenly stellar residence. Now that the matter of the Wuyue Empire had been settled, the only thing left was to destroy the heavenly wolf empire. With the first ray of sunlight in the morning, Xiao Chun, who was standing in the courtyard, looked in the direction of the heavenly wolf empire and softly muttered to himself, Blood Wolf King, I said that I would definitely cut off your head with my own hands. Chapter 505. Now that the matter of the Moonless Empire had been settled, Chu Wuming had successfully ascended to the position of Crown Prince and held great power. The current Moonless Empire had indeed presented a rather strange image. That was, the Emperor had no real power in his hands, while the Crown Prince held great power in his hands. The military and politics of the Empire were all firmly controlled by Chu Wuming. As for Chu Mu, he was more like a symbol of the Moonless Empire. He didn't have the slightest bit of authority, and was just like the mascot of the Moonless Empire. However, Chu Wuming did not break his promise to Chu Mu. Other than not giving him any power, he still provided him with good food and drinks, allowing him to live out his remaining years in the palace. Originally, the situation of the Moonless Empire had just stabilized, so it was not the best time to attack the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, Xiao Chun did not have much time left, so the destruction of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was imperative. Xiao Chun gave Chu Wuming a few days' time. After he had successfully walked out of the matter with Chu Wuk and Chu Wushuang, Xiao Chun sought him out to discuss the matter of attacking the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Chu Wuming now knew that it was not the best time to attack the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, since Xiao Chun had said so, Chu Wuming did not refuse. In front of Xiao Chun, Chu Wuming did not have the dignity of a crown prince. It could be said that he listened to everything Xiao Chun said. Soon, they decided on the plan to attack the Heavenly Wolf Empire. This time, the Moonless Empire wanted to destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire in one fell swoop. Therefore, this war could be said to be a war between the two empires. Before the war began, the first problem to be dealt with was the Gale Empire. Since they wanted to start an all-out war with the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Moonless Empire had to concentrate their forces at Hulao Pass. In this way, their defense against the Gale Empire would naturally be much weaker. Therefore, in order to guard against the Gale Empire's sneak attack, the Moonless Empire naturally had to send people to the Gale Empire to discuss. As for who to send, Xiao Chun had already thought about it. Zhang Qi and an elder of the Tianqi sect were the most suitable. First of all, the elder of the Celestial Equal sect represented the Celestial Equal sect. This could make the Gale Empire wary to a certain extent. After all, the Celestial Equal sect was also involved in this matter. When the Gale Empire took action, they had no choice but to consider the Celestial Equal sect. After confirming the candidates, Xiao Chun ordered the two of them to set off on the same day. This time, in order to persuade the Gale Empire, Xiao Chun and Chu Wuming discussed and decided to give 1/3 of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory to the Gale Empire. In other words, the Gale Empire didn't need to participate in this war, but they couldn't sneak attack the Moonless Empire. After the war, if the Moonless Empire won, the Gale Empire would get 1/3 of the Sky Wolf Empire's territory. Such a condition could be said to be extremely generous. As long as the Gale Empire was not stupid, they would definitely not refuse. In this way, the Moonless Empire would be able to deal with the war with the Heavenly Wolf Empire with all their strength. Zhang Qi and the elder of the Celestial Equal sect left for the Gale Empire on the same day through the teleportation formation. With the teleportation formation, the two of them could return within a few days. At the same time that the two of them left for the Gale Empire, Chu Wuming also began to mobilize the army. He mobilized nearly 90% of the Moonless Empire's forces to Hulao Pass, leaving less than 1 million troops at the border with the Gale Empire. In order to complete the mobilization of the army in a short period of time, Chu Wuming could be said to have spared no expense and used all the spirit stones in the treasury. Faced with Chu Wuming's actions, some of the Moonless Empire's ministers supported it, while others strongly opposed it. Even Chu Qingshan and Chu Mubai had no choice but to step in. After all, Chu Wuming's actions clearly indicated that he wanted to fight to the death with the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Once the war started, they would either win, or the Moonless Empire's strength would be greatly reduced, or even be destroyed. Within Wuha Palace, on this day, the Moonless Empire's civil and military officials, as well as Chu Qingshan and Chu Mubai, gathered together. Chu Wuming sat below the throne. Faced with Chu Wuming, many of the ministers expressed their opinions. Your Highness, this war is not feasible. Right now, our Moonless Empire has just stabilized. If we rashly start a war with the Heavenly Wolf Empire, it will be too dangerous. That's right, Your Highness. The Heavenly Wolf Empire's strength is not inferior to our Moonless Empire. If we start an all-out war, the outcome will be hard to predict. I hope Your Highness will reconsider. I implore Your Highness to reconsider. This war was truly too important. So many of the ministers tried their best to persuade Chu Wuming to reconsider. However, faced with the dissuasion of many ministers, Chu Wuming spoke neither hurriedly nor slowly in a deep voice. Everyone, there's no need to say more. I've already made up my mind. Moreover, our Moonless Empire will definitely be loud in this war. When the time comes, our Moonless Empire will become the strongest empire in Danyang County. Chu Wuming was full of confidence. Hearing this, many of the large achievements looked at each other. They did not know what Chu Wuming was planning. Even Chu Qingshan asked curiously, Nameless, what plan do you have? Can you just say it? Chu Qingshan needed an explanation from Chu Wuming. After all, this was a war that concerned the survival of the Moonless Empire. Chu Wuming naturally could not refuse. After all, Chu Qingshan was the retired emperor. His status was above that of the crown prince. After letting the ministers leave, when only Chu Wuming, Chu Qingshan, and Chu Mubai remained in Wuha Palace, Chu Wuming slowly spoke. Ancestor, your grandson indeed has absolute confidence in winning this war. Oh, tell me in detail. Hearing this, Chu Qingshan said, Because in this attack on the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Tiger Leopard Ridge will do their best to help. With our Moonless Empire, Tiger Leopard Ridge, and Tianchi Sect, how can the Heavenly Wolf Empire not be destroyed? Without hiding anything, he told Chu Qingshan the truth. The reason why Chu Wuming had absolute confidence in winning this war was because of Tiger Leopard Ridge. In Wuha Palace, Chu Wuming spent a total of 4 hours before he finally managed to convince Chu Qingshan. If even Chu Qingshan agreed to it this time around, then no one would be able to stop this battle. At the same time, Chu Qingshan and Chu Mubai naturally would not just watch from the sidelines. At the same time, the Burning Sky ruler would also take action. The Moonless Empire's army continuously gathered at Hulao Pass. Such a large movement was naturally received by the Heavenly Wolf Empire. At this moment, in the Heavenly Wolf Empire's palace, the Heavenly Wolf Emperor looked at the ministers below and said in a low voice, "All of you, what do you think the Moonless Empire wants? Could it be that they truly want to start an all-out war with our Heavenly Wolf Empire? Reporting to Your Majesty, the Moonless Empire situation has just stabilized. Logically speaking, they should not start a war at this time." Hearing the Heavenly Wolf Emperor's question, a minister respectfully replied, "Since that is the case, why is the Moonless Empire's army continuously gathering at Hulao Pass? Is this not a sign of a war breaking out?" The Heavenly Wolf Emperor coldly said. Chapter 506. No one thought that the Moonless Empire would start a war at this time, but judging from the current situation, the Moonless Empire was indeed preparing for an all-out war. The civil and military officials of the Heavenly Wolf Empire were a little confused by Chu Wuming's actions. But just in case, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire ordered the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire to gather at the Hulao Pass to prevent the Moonless Empire from starting a war. Although the current situation of the Moonless Empire wasn't suitable to start a war, it was still better to be careful. After 2 hours of court assembly, the Blood Wolf King and the other courtiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire left the palace together. Sitting in the carriage, the Blood Wolf King's expression didn't look too good. At the same time, a thought kept lingering in his mind. If the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge are involved, then the Moonless Empire might really start a war. He had been thinking about this problem for a long time. After all, the Blood Wolf King clearly saw the Tiger Emperor personally escorting Shao Chun and the others back to the Moonless Empire. To be able to do this, it was obvious that the Tiger Emperor and Shao Chun had reached some kind of agreement. Moreover, Shao Chun must have something that the Tiger Emperor couldn't refuse. In this case, if Shao Chun went to the Tiger Leopard Ridge to persuade the Tiger Emperor, then the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge might really intervene. However, on second thought, the Blood Wolf King felt that it was impossible. After all, the Tiger Leopard Ridge had existed for so many years. If they were willing to help humans, why would they wait until now? Moreover, humans and demonic beasts were enemies, so why would they join hands? Even if Shao Chun had something that the Tiger Emperor needed, he must have used it the last time. He thought that Shao Chun had already used up his bargaining chip when the Tiger Emperor saved him last time. However, the Blood Wolf King definitely wouldn't have thought that the Tiger Emperor didn't obtain anything last time and only received a promise from Shao Chun. Just because of a promise, the Tiger Emperor personally escorted Shao Chun back to the Moonless Empire. This was something that the Blood Wolf King didn't expect. That was because he understood the Tiger Emperor's personality all too well. This was definitely a master who wouldn't act unless he saw a rabbit. If you wanted him to help you without any benefits, that was definitely a pipe dream. He did not think that Shao Chun had any bargaining chips that could make the Tiger Emperor take action. At the same time, it was impossible for monsters to form an alliance with humans. Combining these two reasons, the Blood Wolf King gradually calmed down. He felt that he had made a big fuss over nothing. After returning to the king's palace, Blood Wolf King was in a bad mood because of Shao Chun. That brat had snatched away the beauty that was already in his hands. Until now, Blood Wolf King still couldn't let go of Bai Ruyue's matter. Blood Wolf King was indeed infatuated with Bai Ruyue. In the mansion, The Blood Wolf King looked in the direction of the Moonless Empire and said coldly, "Shao Chun, you better not fall into my hands. Otherwise, I will make you beg for death." Blood Wolf King said with overflowing killing intent. Unbeknownst to him, in the imperial capital of the Moonless Empire, Shao Chun also looked at the horizon and said with overflowing killing intent in his eyes, "Blood Wolf King, I will soon be able to chop off your head with my own hands." Blood Wolf King wanted to kill Shao Chun. At the same time, Shao Chun also wanted to kill Blood Wolf King. If he didn't kill Blood Wolf King, Shao Chun wouldn't feel at ease. Blood Wolf King actually dared to have designs on his mother. The two empires made their moves one after another. For a moment, the atmosphere in Hulao Pass became tense. Tens of millions of troops were constantly gathering here. At the same time, more troops would arrive. At the same time, all kinds of strategic resources, such as pills and talismans, were constantly being transported to the front line of Hulao Pass. While both sides were preparing, Zhang Qi and the elder from the Celestial Equal sect successfully met the Emperor of the Gale Empire in the imperial capital of the Gale Empire. "You want my Gale Empire to not take action?" Zhang Qi told the Emperor of the Gale Empire that the Moonless Empire was about to launch a large-scale attack on the Heavenly Wolf Empire. At the same time, Zhang Qi clearly expressed that Shao Chun hoped that the Gale Empire wouldn't take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the Moonless Empire. Hearing this, the Emperor of the Gale Empire smiled and said, "What benefits do I get by doing this?" After the war, the Gale Empire can get 1/3 of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory, Zhang Qi said. "Oh, interesting, but is the Moonless Empire so confident that they can win? This isn't something that the Gale Empire should consider. After all, the Gale Empire doesn't need to do anything in this war. As long as they don't move, they will have the opportunity to get 1/3 of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Moreover, if the Moonless Empire is defeated, the Gale Empire won't suffer any losses, right?" This was a completely empty deal. Without mobilizing a single soldier, the Gale Empire would have the opportunity to get 1/3 of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Regardless of the result, the Gale Empire wouldn't suffer any losses. Shao Chun only had one request for the Gale Empire, and that was to not stab them in the back. After all, 90% of the Moonless Empire's army had been transferred to Hulao Pass. The defense against the Gale Empire could be said to exist in name only. If the Gale Empire launched an attack at this time, the Moonless Empire wouldn't be able to withstand it. Hearing Zhang Qi's words, the Emperor looked at the Celestial Equal Sect's elder. Since the Celestial Equal Sect's elder had appeared here, it clearly proved that the Celestial Equal Sect was also involved in this matter. Just as Shao Chun thought, the appearance of the Celestial Equal Sect's elder made the Emperor of the Gale Empire somewhat fearful. The Emperor of the Gale Empire didn't immediately agree to Zhang Qi's request. Instead, he had the two rest in the imperial capital. In response, Zhang Qi said, "I hope your majesty can give us an answer as soon as possible. The situation of the war is constantly changing. We don't have much time. Don't worry, I'll definitely give you an answer within 3 days." "That's good. Then we'll wait for your majesty's answer in the imperial capital," said Zhang Qi. The Emperor of the Gale Empire personally arranged accommodations for Zhang Qi and Zhang Qi. The next day, the Emperor of the Gale Empire asked for the opinions of his ministers at the imperial court meeting. Actually, this matter wasn't very difficult to choose because there were only benefits and no disadvantages. They didn't need to exert themselves, and there were benefits to be gained. Only an idiot would refuse such a thing. Therefore, the Emperor of the Gale Empire didn't even wait 3 days. The Emperor of the Gale Empire gave an answer the next day. The Gale Empire agreed to the Moonless Empire's request. During the period of time when the Moonless Empire and the Heavenly Wolf Empire were at war, the Gale Empire wouldn't invade the Moonless Empire in the slightest. After receiving the Gale Empire's reply, Zhang Qi and Zhang Qi immediately returned to the Moonless Empire to report. The matter progressed very smoothly. Of course, all of this was within Shao Chun's expectations. They didn't need to worry too much about the rear anymore. With the Gale Empire's guarantee, the Moonless Empire could fully focus on the war with the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Several days later, Zhang Qi and Zhang Qi returned to the imperial capital. After receiving the news, Xiao Qian said with a faint smile, "Looks like it's about time for me to head to the Tiger Leopard Ridge." Chapter 507. Now that the matter with the Celestial Wolf Empire had been dealt with, they only had to wait for the army to gather before launching an attack on the Celestial Wolf Empire. However, before that, Xiao Qian intended to personally make a trip to Tiger Leopard Ridge. After all, the key to the outcome of this battle was the joint forces of the Moonless Empire and the demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge. Otherwise, the Moonless Empire was obviously unable to annihilate the Celestial Wolf Empire by itself. After bidding farewell to Bai Ruyue, even though Bai Ruyue was worried when she found out that Xiao Qian intended to leave the imperial capital, she didn't stop him and only repeatedly instructed Xiao Qian to take good care of himself. Xiao Qian nodded repeatedly in response to his mother's instructions. However, when Xiao Qian was about to leave, he was stopped by Gu Lingyao. During this period of time, Gu Lingyao had always been in the Moonless Empire's imperial capital, and she said that she wanted to personally bring Xiao Qian to the Celestial Unity sect. At this moment, when she heard that Xiao Qian intended to head to Tiger Leopard Ridge, Gu Lingyao actually wanted to follow him. "Are you all right? What's a little girl like you doing at Tiger Leopard Ridge?" Xiao Qian spoke angrily when he heard Gu Lingyao. "Why can't I go? I've been bored to death these past 2 days." Gu Lingyao spoke angrily when she heard Xiao Qian. Gu Lingyao had been staying in the imperial capital these past few days, and she was really bored to death. Xiao Qian didn't have the time to accompany her as well. After that, Xiao Qian brought Gu Lingyao to Tiger Leopard Ridge. Xiao Qian brought Gu Xiao, a Dao King realm expert, while Gu Lingyao brought Tiang Guichuan, a Dao Emperor realm expert. After they arrived at Hulao Pass from the teleportation formation in the imperial capital, the four of them quickly entered Tiger Leopard Ridge. To others, Tiger Leopard Ridge was a forbidden area that absolutely couldn't be trespassed. However, due to the presence of the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor, the demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge didn't dare harm Xiao Qian's group. They arrived at the demon beast village very smoothly and met the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor. The two beast emperors were very calm when they saw Xiao Qian, but they were slightly surprised when they saw Gu Lingyao. As Gu Qi's only daughter, the two beast kings naturally knew Gu Lingyao. Although they had never seen her in person, they had seen her portrait. After all, Tiger Leopard Ridge was located in Danyang County, and they had to have some understanding of the human world. "Miss Gu has also come to my Tiger Leopard Ridge." What a surprise. The Tiger Emperor laughed softly as he looked at Gu Lingyao. Gu Lingyao wasn't nervous at all when she heard the Tiger Emperor, and she replied with a smile, "I came with Xiao Qian, but to be honest, it's my first time here." With Gu Lingyao's identity, Gu Qi naturally wouldn't allow her to come to a place like Tiger Leopard Ridge. After all, everyone knew how ferocious the demon beasts were. At this moment, if Gu Qi knew that Xiao Qian had actually brought his only daughter to Tiger Leopard Ridge, who knew what Gu Qi would think? Compared to Gu Lingyao's ease, Tiang Guichuan seemed to be slightly nervous. He'd been following closely behind Gu Lingyao and was on guard at all times. He was deeply afraid that the demon beast would suddenly go berserk and harm Gu Lingyao. He wasn't displeased with Gu Lingyao's arrival. After greeting her, the Tiger Emperor looked at Xiao Qian and said, "Xiao Qian, did you come to my Tiger Leopard Ridge to find your second sister?" The Tiger Emperor and the Leopard Emperor were naturally most concerned about the dragon blood essence. However, Xiao Qian shook his head and said, "Not yet. I came this time to discuss the matter of attacking the Heavenly Wolf Empire with Lord Beast Emperor." These two Beast Emperors were too impatient. How long had it been? He hadn't even left the Moonless Empire. How was he going to find Long Qing? After hearing that Xiao Qian had come to attack the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the two Beast Emperors' interest greatly decreased. They weren't very interested in attacking the Heavenly Wolf Empire, but they didn't refuse. After all, this was what they had agreed on before. Currently, the Moonless Empire's army had begun to gather at Hulao Pass. There were no less than 10 million of them now. It was obvious that the Moonless Empire was truly preparing to launch an all-out attack on the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Furthermore, the two Beast Emperors had heard about what had happened in the Moonless Empire during this period of time. They knew that the true ruler of the Moonless Empire was the Crown Prince, Chu Wuming. According to what we said before, once the Moonless Empire and the Heavenly Wolf Empire start fighting, the demonic beasts of my Tiger Leopard Ridge will take action. However, Shao Chun, you have to remember that after this matter is over, the Moonless Empire's army will have to kneel before my Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Tiger Emperor said as he looked at Shao Chun. Being able to devour the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army of over 10 million was naturally very beneficial to the demonic beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge. However, to the Tiger Emperor and the Leopard Emperor, it was a drop in the bucket. After all, for demonic beasts at their level, the benefits of devouring human cultivators were far too little. It was almost negligible. However, for the sake of the demonic beasts below, as well as the fact that this matter would not harm Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Tiger Emperor and the Leopard Emperor chose to agree. Just as Shao Chun and the demonic beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge finally agreed, the Moonless Empire's army within Hulao Pass also began to move. In the Empire War, Chu Wuming, Chu Qingshan, Chu Mu Bai, the Burning Sky ruler, and the other core figures of the Moonless Empire had all arrived at the border of Hulao Pass. It could be said that almost all of the Moonless Empire's experts had arrived at Hulao Pass. Along with everyone's arrival, Shao Chun also sent back news from Tiger Leopard Ridge. On this day, Chu Wuming had finally given the order to attack. With the 4 great princes and the 8 great dukes as the vanguard, they directly launched an attack on the Heavenly Wolf Empire. In order to take down the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the first thing they had to do was naturally break through Hulao Pass. Therefore, the vanguard that Chu Wuming arranged could be said to be very powerful. Just as the Moonless Empire's army began to move, the Heavenly Wolf Empire received the news and quickly sent it back to the imperial capital. After learning that the Moonless Empire had actually launched an attack, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was furious within the Imperial Palace. Damn it! How dare that brat Chu Wuming attack my Heavenly Wolf Empire? I'll definitely destroy him and the Moonless Empire. The Moonless Empire's attack infuriated the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire to the extreme. At the same time, he immediately ordered the garrison of Hulao Pass to face the enemy. At the same time, he sent many experts towards Hulao Pass. The battle was on the verge of erupting. The entire Hulao Pass had instantly transformed into a hellish battlefield. An army of a few tens of millions fought once more. Even Dao emperors faced the risk of death here, let alone Dao exalts and Dao kings. Their lives were only slightly more precious than ordinary cultivators. Battle cries and the sound of metal colliding rose and fell. The two armies clashed. For a moment, the battle was extremely tragic. The Heavenly Wolf Empire did its best to resist the Moonless Empire's attack. For a moment, both sides seemed to have entered a stalemate. Chapter 508. In terms of strength, the Moonless Empire and the Heavenly Wolf Empire were equally matched, so the Moonless Empire didn't gain any advantage from the start of the battle. On the battlefield, the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire and the Moonless Empire fought fiercely in the sky. A Dao King expert sneered, "Your Moonless Empire is courting death. You actually dared to attack our Heavenly Wolf Empire. You're simply digging your own grave." The generals of the Heavenly Wolf Empire thought that the Moonless Empire had gone mad for daring to launch such a large-scale attack. However, the generals of the Moonless Empire only laughed disdainfully. "A bunch of idiots. This time, we'll completely destroy your Heavenly Wolf Empire." The Moonless Empire naturally couldn't destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire by itself. Otherwise, how could the two countries have been at odds for hundreds of years without being able to do anything to each other? However, this time, Shao Chun had successfully convinced the demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge. This way, the Heavenly Wolf Empire would be destroyed. The war broke out. With tens of millions of people fighting, It was naturally difficult to determine the outcome in a short period of time. Several days passed in a row. The Moonless Empire launched attacks every day, but the Heavenly Wolf Empire didn't show any signs of weakness. The two countries could be said to be fighting back and forth. Chu Wuming was sitting with a group of Moonless Empire's experts in the general's mansion in Jinshan City. At this time, the Gong Prince, one of the 4 imperial princes, spoke with a dignified expression. "Your Highness Crown Prince, it's already been 3 days. The demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge still haven't made a move?" The news of the alliance between the Moonless Empire and the demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge had already been told to everyone. However, 3 days had already passed in a row. Every day, the armies of the two countries fought to the death, but the demon beasts of Tiger Leopard Ridge showed no signs of making a move. If this continued, the Empire's army would suffer heavy losses. Hearing the Gong Prince's words, Chu Wuming was helpless. Since Xiao Chan sent back the news 3 days ago, there had been no follow-up. However, Chu Wuming still believed in Xiao Chan, so he launched an attack. Sighing lightly, Chu Wuming said indifferently, "How are the casualties of our army?" Replying to your majesty, after 3 days of fierce fighting, our army has lost nearly 500,000 people. The number of seriously injured has reached 1 million, and the number of people with light injuries is innumerable. Facing Chu Wuming's inquiry, the Gong Prince replied truthfully. Chu Wuming sank into silence after hearing the Gong Prince's reply. The number of casualties was indeed not small in a short 3 days. However, Chu Wuming quickly said in a deep voice, "Continue the attack. You must break through this Lao pass for me." Chu Wuming had no intention of giving up. He believed in Xiao Chun. Hearing Chu Wuming's words, everyone present nodded respectfully. The offensive of the Moonless Empire was getting fiercer and fiercer by the day. On the 7th day of the outbreak of the war, the armies of both sides were engaged in a fierce battle. But suddenly, from both sides of the Tiger Leopard Ridge, there were deafening roars of beasts. At the same time, along with the roars of these demonic beasts, the ground also began to shake. Feeling the shaking of the ground, it was naturally not an earthquake, but the imagination of countless demonic beasts running wildly. The demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge are rioting? Sensing this change, the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire were somewhat confused. They thought that the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge were rioting again. After all, such incidents had happened before. However, on the other side, the experts of the Moonless Empire sneered. Many of them whispered softly, "Are they finally here? The demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge." The experts of the Moonless Empire naturally knew that this was not a demonic beast rioting. Just as the armies of both empires were having their own thoughts, from the deep mountains and dense forests on both sides, wild demonic beasts madly rushed out. Then, without the slightest hesitation, they charged towards the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. In the beginning, there were only some low-ranked demonic beasts. However, gradually, high-ranked demonic beasts that had taken human form appeared. Each of them stood in the air and looked at the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire as they shouted coldly, "Ha, little bastards, today is a good day for you. Eat as much as you want and devour these soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire." Following the furious roars of the high-ranked demonic beasts and the attack of the demonic beast army, the expression of the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire changed drastically. What was going on? Why were the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge attacking them? They could clearly see that after the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge appeared, they did not harm the soldiers of the Moonless Empire. Instead, they charged towards the soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Damn it! Could it be that the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge have joined forces with the Moonless Empire? Very quickly, the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire guessed this point. Their hearts were filled with doubts. However, now is not the time to talk about this. With the addition of the demonic beast army, the situation of the battle instantly changed. The side of the Moonless Empire was actually victorious. With the help of the demonic beast army, they quickly gained the upper hand. On the other hand, The Heavenly Wolf Empire was facing the army of the Moonless Empire and the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge at the same time. For a moment, they were forced to retreat. More importantly, their morale was greatly reduced. There were even some soldiers who began to flee towards the rear. No one knew exactly how many demonic beasts there were in the Tiger Leopard Ridge. However, one thing was certain: there were definitely not less than 10 million demonic beasts. The experts of the Moonless Empire coldly shouted as the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge finally attacked. Soldiers, charge! Breaking through Hulao Pass will be a great achievement. Damn it, damn it. The Moonless Empire is indeed prepared. They have actually joined forces with the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge. Quick, inform the rear to send reinforcements. At the same time, immediately send a message to inform His Majesty of this matter. Compared to the Moonless Empire, the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire were clearly incomparably depressed. The news of the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge joining the battle was quickly transmitted to the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. When the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire received this news, his face immediately paled. His legs became soft, and he almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the people of the temple beside him supported him. How is this possible? How is this possible? How is it possible that the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge have joined forces with the Moonless Empire? How did the Moonless Empire convince the two beast emperors of the Tiger Leopard Ridge? The Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire muttered in disbelief with a face full of shock. He was completely unable to accept this fact. A long while later, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire suddenly recovered. He no longer cared about his dignity and roared at the people of the temple beside him. Quickly go and invite the retired emperor. Also, order people to go to the Gale Empire and the Qingyang sect. Ask them to help. No matter what price we have to pay, we must convince them to help. Otherwise, our Heavenly Wolf Empire will be finished. He clearly knew that the Heavenly Wolf Empire could not stop the alliance of the Moonless Empire and the Tiger Leopard Ridge. Therefore, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire had no choice but to ask for help from the Gale Empire and the Qingyang sect. This was the only way to get through this crisis. As for the price he had to pay to convince the two parties, it was no longer within the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's consideration. Chapter 509. The appearance of the demonic beast from Tiger Leopard Ridge had pushed the Heavenly Wolf Empire into a desperate situation. Anyone could see that the Heavenly Wolf Empire had no chance of winning against both the Moonless Empire and Tiger Leopard Ridge. Just like the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Blood Wolf King's expression changed drastically after receiving the news. He kept muttering to himself, as expected. The Blood Wolf King had already guessed this before, but he didn't believe that Shao Chun could persuade the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor. But now, it seemed that Shao Chun had done it. The Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor had really joined forces with the Moonless Empire. In the history of Danyang County, this was the first time a demonic beast had joined forces with a human. Damn it! How could that little bastard convince the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor? After the initial shock, the Blood Wolf King flew into a rage. At the same time, a trace of extreme fear uncontrollably emerged from the bottom of his heart. The Blood Wolf King hadn't forgotten Shao Chin's murderous expression and words back at Tiger Leopard Ridge. Blood Wolf King, wash your neck and wait. I will definitely kill you with my own hands. The Blood Wolf King had thought that this sentence was just a joke, but who would have thought that Shao Chun could actually persuade the demonic beast from Tiger Leopard Ridge? The news of the alliance between the Tiger Leopard Ridge and the Moonless Empire quickly spread throughout the Heavenly Wolf Empire. After all, such a thing couldn't be hidden. In the face of the alliance between the Moonless Empire and Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Heavenly Wolf Empire desperately sent reinforcements to Hulao Pass, but it didn't have much effect. The difference in strength was too big. The Heavenly Wolf Empire's only chance was the Qingyang sect and the Gale Empire. As long as either one of them was willing to help, the Heavenly Wolf Empire could reverse the situation. The Heavenly Wolf Empire had already sent envoys to the Gale Empire and the Qingyang sect, But the Gale Empire's answer was very clear. They wouldn't interfere in this war. Thinking about it, Xiao Chun had already ordered Zhang Qi and the Gale Empire to attack first. Without doing anything, the Gale Empire would be able to obtain 1/3 of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory. Naturally, the Heavenly Wolf Empire would not be able to offer such a price. After all, no empire would be willing to give away 1/3 of their territory at once. Moreover, even if they could, the Gale Empire would not agree. The reason was very simple. If they cooperated with the Moonless Empire, the Gale Empire would not have to do anything. However, if they cooperated with the Heavenly Wolf Empire, then the Gale Empire would have to send troops. Comparing the two, even an idiot would choose the Moonless Empire. The attitude of the Gale Empire was very clear. However, the Qingyang sect did offer a price, but it was ridiculously high. Even the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire gasped when he heard the price offered by the Qingyang sect. What? 100 million mid-grade spirit stones? In addition, there are all kinds of elixirs, talismans, and countless natural treasures. Is the Qingyang sect trying to take advantage of the situation? The Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire shouted angrily in the Imperial Palace. The price offered by the Qingyang sect could be said to have almost emptied the foundation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire for countless years. It was absolutely taking advantage of the situation. The Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was furious, but he also knew that he had no choice. If he did not agree with the Qingyang sect, the Heavenly Wolf Empire would be destroyed. Perhaps the Qingyang sect knew this and dared to offer such a high price. His heart was bleeding. If he agreed with the Qingyang sect, the wealth that the Heavenly Wolf Empire had accumulated for so many years would be gone in an instant. However, if he did not agree, the Heavenly Wolf Empire would be destroyed. In the end, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire said coldly, "Tell the Qingyang sect that I agree to their conditions and ask them to immediately send experts to support us." In the end, he chose to agree. After receiving the reply from the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Qingyang sect did not go back on their words and quickly sent experts to the Moonless Empire. There were a total of 200,000 disciples, nearly 10,000 deacons, and 10 elders. Although the Qingyang sect did not send many people, their strength was not to be underestimated. After all, the two sects did not rely on numbers to dominate. They were not like the three great empires, which had billions of people. As sects, they took the path of elites. Therefore, the strength of the 200,000 disciples, 10,000 deacons, and 10 elders was not weaker than an army of tens of millions. After all, the cultivation and combat strength of the soldiers could not be compared to the sect disciples. In general, it was normal for a sect disciple to casually destroy thousands of soldiers. The Qingyang sect had already sent out reinforcements. At the same time, in the Tianqi sect, Gu Qi was sitting in a garden and listening to the report of an elder below with a faint smile on his face. The Qingyang sect has already acted? Yes, according to the news, the reinforcements sent by the Qingyang sect are already on their way to the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the elder respectfully replied. In that case, it's time for us to take action. Make the arrangements. You will personally lead a team to stop the Qingyang sect. Remember, our goal this time is not to defeat them, but to stall them, said Gu Qi. According to the previous agreement, the Tianqi sect would naturally be responsible for stopping the Qingyang sect since the Qingyang sect had already taken action. As for the benefits, the things that the Heavenly Wolf Empire gave to the Qingyang sect would all belong to the Tianqi sect. This was what Xiao Chun and Gu Qi had discussed from the beginning. On the other side, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire secretly heaved a sigh of relief after receiving the news that the Qingyang sect had sent reinforcements to the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, before he could completely relax, another piece of news came. This news was like a thunderbolt that struck the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The news was very clear. The Qingyang sect had indeed sent reinforcements, but they were stopped by the Tianqi sect before they could enter the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The Tianqi sect had also sent 200,000 disciples, 10,000 deacons, and 10 elders to block the reinforcements of the Qingyang sect and prevent them from entering the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Damn it, damn it. Did the Tianqi sect also join forces with the Moonless Empire? It was not easy to persuade the Qingyang sect and pay such a huge price, but in the end, they were blocked by the Tianqi sect. As a result, the Heavenly Wolf Empire still did not have any reinforcements. Half a month had passed since the outbreak of the war. Hulao Pass had also been successfully breached by the joint forces of the Moonless Empire and the Tiger Leopard Ridge. The two allied forces went straight into the hinterland of the Heavenly Wolf Empire and quickly annexed many territories of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Moreover, according to Chu Wuming's order, the allied forces did not slow down and surrounded the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Without a dangerous place like the Tiger Leopard Ridge to defend, the Heavenly Wolf Empire retreated even faster. At this rate, the joint forces of the Moonless Empire and the Tiger Leopard Ridge would arrive at the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire in a few days. When the time came, the Heavenly Wolf Empire would be finished. Chapter 5:10. The Heavenly Wolf Empire's hopes had been shattered time and time again. They originally thought that the Moonless Empire had gone crazy, which was why they dared to invade the Heavenly Wolf Empire on such a large scale. However, the appearance of the demonic beast from the Tiger Leopard Ridge stunned everyone in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The Azure Sun sect then agreed to help the Heavenly Wolf Empire, but they were now blocked by the Celestial Equal sect. How could the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire not know that this battle had been carefully planned by the Moonless Empire? They had calculated everything for the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Of course, what the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire didn't expect was that this battle to destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire wasn't planned by Chu Wuming at all, but by Shao Chun. As for the reason, it was because of a woman. If it weren't for what the Blood Wolf King had done to Bai Ruyue, why would Shao Chun be so crazy to destroy the Heavenly Wolf Empire? If the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire knew the truth, who knew what he would think? Perhaps he would strangle the Blood Wolf King to death, because if it weren't for him, the Heavenly Wolf Empire wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Everything had been planned out by Shao Chun. Within the Imperial Palace, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire seemed to have aged a lot in an instant, and his entire person became extremely desolate. Unlike the desolation of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Moonless Empire's morale was high. Under the personal leadership of Chu Wuming, the Moonless Empire's army quickly arrived at the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. It could be said that they were unstoppable. Your Highness, we will reach the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire in at most one day. At that time, as long as we take over the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, victory will be assured, Zhao Feng said to Chu Wuming with an excited smile on his face. Hearing Zhao Feng's words, Chu Wuming also revealed a faint smile and nodded his head, and passed down the order. The entire army will advance quickly. I will surround the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire before nightfall tomorrow. Yes, Zhao Feng respectfully replied. Chu Wuming gave the order to travel at full speed. At the same time, Shao Chun and Gu Lingyao's group of 4 also left Tiger Leopard Ridge with the Tiger Emperor and Panther Emperor, rushing towards the Skywolf Empire's capital. He had heard about the fall of Hulao Pass a long time ago. Moreover, he knew that the allied army of the Moonless Empire and Tiger Leopard Ridge had arrived at the imperial capital. So, Shao Chun hurried towards the imperial capital as well. While rushing, Shao Chun's eyes flashed with a strong, killing intent as he whispered, "Blood Wolf King, I wonder if you've ever thought that this day would come." It was impossible for Shao Chun to let the Blood Wolf King go. When he thought of what the Blood Wolf King had done in the past, Shao Chun's heart was overflowing with killing intent. It was no exaggeration to say that his mother, Bai Ruyue, was definitely Shao Chun's reverse scale. If anyone dared to harm Bai Ruyue in the slightest, Shao Chun would not let them off. The Moonless Empire's army advanced rapidly. At noon the next day, the vanguard had already arrived at the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. At this moment, the gates of the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire were tightly shut. At the same time, the city protecting array had already been activated. Within the imperial palace, the emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire looked at the two old men below him and the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire under the Bloodwolf King. He said in a hoarse voice, "The Moonless Empire's army has already arrived at the city. Everyone, we no longer have a path of retreat. We can only fight to the death." The two old men were the retired emperors of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Doubt Emperors. When they heard the emperor's words, the two of them sighed. A fight to the death was actually just their own wishful thinking. With the strength of the Moonless Empire and Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Heavenly Wolf Empire had already lost the qualifications to fight to the death. The strength of both sides was simply not equal. However, they had clearly never thought about surrendering. After all, as members of the imperial family, how could the Moonless Empire possibly accept their surrender? Perhaps the Moonless Empire would be lenient when facing the clans and officials of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. However, the Moonless Empire would definitely annihilate the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. After any battle, the victorious empire would obviously not let the imperial family of the defeated empire go. This was beyond doubt. So, even if they no longer had the slightest chance, the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire still didn't have any thoughts of surrendering because they couldn't. When they heard His Majesty's words, the two retired emperors sighed softly. On the other hand, the others all had their own ulterior motives. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the Heavenly Wolf Empire had no chance at all. They weren't the imperial family. If they chose to surrender, they might be able to keep their lives. After all, the Moonless Empire had to send people to manage the Heavenly Wolf Empire after they defeated it. On the surface, they didn't say anything. However, behind their backs, the officials had already begun to arrange their own escape routes. Many of them had secretly chosen to surrender. However, among the officials, there was one person whose expression was abnormally ugly. It was the Bloodwolf King. Just like the imperial family, he knew very well that he couldn't surrender because Shao Chun was here. To put bluntly, Shao Chun could let anyone go, but he wouldn't. The Bloodwolf King was very clear about this. A heavy aura spread throughout the hall. Subsequently, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire arranged the defense of the imperial capital. Currently, there were already 3 million troops stationed in the imperial capital. Moreover, all of them were elite troops. Moreover, there were also the extremely powerful Heavenly Wolf Guards. Such a defensive force seemed very strong. However, to be honest, it was simply impossible to rely on this to block the allied forces of the Moonless Empire and Tiger Leopard Ridge. They could only struggle at death's door. It was as if they were waiting for death. This feeling was extremely unpleasant. All kinds of emotions constantly converged in their hearts. Compared to the heavy atmosphere of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, outside the imperial capital, Shao Chun, Guling Yao, Tiger Emperor, Leopard Emperor, and the others had successfully met up with Chu Wuming at the Moonless Empire's encampment. Seeing that Shao Chun had returned, Chu Wuming appeared to be very happy. However, because the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor were still at the side, Chu Wuming didn't dare to chat too much with Shao Chun. Instead, he respectfully greeted the two Beast Kings. "Welcome, Lord Beast Kings." "Haha, you're Chu Wuming, right? Not bad, not bad. If you're in charge of the Moonless Empire in the future, then we can communicate more." The Tiger Emperor laughed loudly when he heard Chu Wuming, and he didn't put on any airs. The group entered the commander's tent and chatted for a while before Chu Qingshan invited the Tiger Emperor and Leopard Emperor to drink. After all, they were Beast Kings. If they wanted to entertain them, then they naturally needed a Dao Emperor like Chu Qingshan. Their strengths were on par with each other, so only then would they be able to talk on equal terms. At the same time, only then would it show how much importance the Moonless Empire attached to the two Beast Kings. Only Shao Chun, Chu Wuming, and Gu Lingyao remained in the tent. Chu Wuming looked at Shao Chun and said with a smile, "Brother Shao, I'll give the order to attack the city tomorrow. I believe it won't be long before we'll be able to take the imperial capital of the Sky Wolf Empire. Chapter 511. Hearing Chu Wuming's words, Xiao Chun nodded his head slightly. Xiao Chun was not worried about the imperial capital. The situation had already been decided, and no matter what the Heavenly Wolf Empire did, it would not change anything. At this moment, there was only one thought in Xiao Chen's mind, and that was to kill the Blood Wolf King. Only by killing the Blood Wolf King would Xiao Chun be able to leave the Moonless Empire and head to the Tianqi sect and Tianfeng Shengzong in the future. Without any pressure, the Heavenly Wolf Empire situation had already been decided. That night, Xiao Chun and Chu Wuming drank a little wine together. Of course, Gu Lingyao was naturally with them. The night quickly passed. On the morning of the second day, Chu Wuming gave the order to attack. In an instant, the Moonless Empire's army and the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge launched an all-out attack. The Moonless Empire's army that besieged the imperial capital numbered in the tens of millions. The demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge numbered in the millions. With such a large army, it was only a matter of time before they took down the imperial capital that was guarded by only a few hundred people. Xiao Chun did not participate in the siege. After all, with Xiao Chen's current strength, it was obvious that he could not influence the situation of the battle. Moreover, if he rashly participated, it would be too dangerous. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not interested in other matters. His only goal was to kill the Blood Wolf King. Standing in the camp, his gaze was fixed on the imperial capital. There were terrifying aftershocks of the battle. Xiao Chen's expression was calm, but his eyes flickered with dense, killing intent. He softly muttered, "Blood Wolf King, we will meet again very soon." The battle erupted. The Moonless Empire's army heavily surrounded the imperial capital. Countless attacks continuously landed on the imperial capital's great city barrier array. Judging from the intensity of the attacks, it would not be long before the imperial capital's great city barrier array collapsed. Without the protection of the great city barrier array, the imperial capital was just a piece of fat meat that the Moonless Empire could devour in a single bite. However, in the face of the Moonless Empire's attack, the Heavenly Wolf Empire clearly wouldn't allow themselves to be captured without a fight. They constantly counterattacked, and for a time, the Moonless Empire suffered quite a number of casualties. They didn't participate in the siege. Chu Qingshan, Chu Mubai, the Burning Sky Ruler, the Tiger Emperor, and the Panther Emperor were watching the siege coldly from the horizon. They did not make a move because they were waiting for the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire to appear. Everyone knew that there were two retired emperors in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Time slowly flowed by. In the end, after 2 full days of intense battle, the great city barrier of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's imperial capital was finally unable to endure any longer and shattered with a loud bang. With the formation broken, the Moonless Empire's army immediately rushed up the city wall, and the two armies immediately clashed. There were already Heavenly Wolf guards among the defenders of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Moreover, the experts of the Heavenly Wolf Empire were also fighting fiercely with the experts of the Moonless Empire. Among them was the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. As the imperial capital was breached, the Emperor naturally couldn't sit on the high platform anymore. Like ordinary warriors, the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was also fighting fiercely with the Gong Prince of the Moonless Empire. Both of them were Dao sovereigns, and for a time, they were equally matched. The battle below was in full swing. Above the clouds in the sky, in front of Chu Qingshan and the other 4, 2 old men appeared. These 2 old men were the retired emperors of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the 2 strongest people in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Looking calmly at Chu Qingshan, one of the old men said with a wry smile, "Brother Chu, how have you been?" "Brother Su, you're too polite." "I'm very well, but I'm afraid the Heavenly Wolf Empire is about to fall," Chu Qingshan said indifferently when he heard the old man's words. Glancing indifferently at the battle below, the old man didn't refute Chu Qingshan's words and said indifferently, "Yes, The Heavenly Wolf Empire is about to fall. Although the two sides were still engaged in an intense battle, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that it would not last for long. This was because many of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's experts had chosen to surrender after just a single exchange. Facing the army of the Moonless Empire, all the major clans and ministers put down the weapons in their hands and chose to surrender. They couldn't be blamed for choosing to surrender. This was human nature. After all, they weren't the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Now that a disaster was imminent, how many people would fight to the death for the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire? It was also because of these people's surrender that the number of experts on the Heavenly Wolf Empire's side dropped rapidly. The originally inferior situation became even more one-sided at this time. Hearing the sigh of the retired emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Chu Qingshan felt a little complicated. They belonged to two different empires, and it could be said that they were destined to be enemies from the moment they were born. However, after so many years of constant competition, Chu Qingshan and the two old men had developed some friendship. After all, they'd once drank and chatted merrily together. What a pity. I never expected that I would actually be the one to send you on your way one day, Brother Su. Chu Qingshan sighed lightly and spoke with slight sadness. Ah, it's fine. Even though I regret it, I've already tried my best. Brother Chu, let's do it. The old man laughed loudly when faced with Chu Qingshan's sigh, and then he actually took the initiative to attack Chu Qingshan and the others. Even though they knew that they couldn't defeat them, the two retired emperors of the Heavenly Wolf Empire still chose to attack. They were the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, and there were even Dao emperors amongst them. At the same time, they were the protectors of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. So, compared to surrendering, perhaps dying on the battlefield was the best outcome for them. Chu Qingshan and the others naturally didn't stand by idly when faced with their attacks. They attacked at the first possible moment, and both sides immediately entered into battle. It was a chaotic battle between 7 Dao emperors, and it was 2 against none. There was no suspense at all about the outcome. Along with the intense battle between the various Dao Emperor realm experts erupting, numerous terrifying pressures descended from the sky above. Even though they possessed an absolute advantage, annihilating the 2 retired emperors of the Heavenly Wolf Empire wasn't something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. After all, the vitality of Dao emperors was extremely tenacious, and it wasn't easy to kill them. Of course, if a saint or even a half-saint made a move, then it would be a completely different matter because they weren't on the same level at all. In the sky, the battle between the Dao emperors was extremely intense. At the same time, there was another person that was fighting desperately within the imperial capital, and it was the Bloodwolf King. He wasn't in the main battlefield. At this moment, the Bloodwolf King was desperately trying to break out of the encirclement, and his objective was extremely obvious. He wanted to flee. Earlier, he'd been constantly looking for an opportunity to flee. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to find such an opportunity. Now, while the imperial capital was in chaos, the Bloodwolf King knew that this was his last chance. So he didn't hesitate at all to choose a weak point in the Moonless Empire's army and lead his trusted aides to break out of the encirclement. Chapter 512. About a dozen people followed the Bloodwolf King to break out of the encirclement. One of them was a Dao master like the Bloodwolf King, and 2 were Dao King realm. The rest were all in the Dao transformation realm. There were not many people, but their strength was not weak. In addition, this was the weak point of the Moonless Empire's army. There were no experts here, and the ordinary soldiers were no match for the Bloodwolf King. Therefore, the Bloodwolf King was about to succeed in breaking out of the encirclement. "Quick, kill our way out," the Bloodwolf King shouted angrily. He was only 1 step away from breaking out of the encirclement. However, just as the Bloodwolf King's voice fell, a mocking voice sounded. "Break out? Bloodwolf King, I'm afraid you're overthinking." Along with the voice, Zhang Qi, Sikong Ming, and a group of warriors from the Heavenly Qin continent appeared in front of the Bloodwolf King. Before the battle began, Xiao Chun had instructed Zhang Qi and Si Kongming to lead the warriors from the heavenly Qin continent to find the Blood Wolf King. They must not let him escape in the chaos. The warriors from the heavenly Qin continent were brought here by Xiao Chun from the imperial capital of the Moonless Empire. Their purpose was to capture the Blood Wolf King. They could not let him escape. Zhang Qi and the others appeared to block the Blood Wolf King's path. Seeing this, the Blood Wolf King's face darkened. However, since things had already come to this, the Blood Wolf King could only cut off all means of retreat. He immediately shouted angrily, "Kill them! Charge out!" Blood Wolf King knew that it was impossible for him to surrender. Xiao Chun would not let him go, so he had to fight. As long as he could get out of the Moonless Empire's army, it would not be difficult for him to survive with his cultivation, even if he could not become a powerful warrior in this world. Of course, the premise was that the Blood Wolf King could successfully break out. Otherwise, there was nothing to talk about. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, the dozen or so experts who followed the Blood Wolf King also charged toward the heavenly Qin continent's army. Seeing this, Zhang Qi shouted in a deep voice, "Except for the Blood Wolf King, leave no one alive. Kill them all." Xiao Qin's order was to capture the Blood Wolf King alive. As for the others, there was no need to worry about them. Immediately, the two sides clashed. Compared to the Blood Wolf King's side, the heavenly Qin continent side had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. They had a total of 30 people. As a result, there was no suspense in the outcome of the battle. The Blood Wolf King also saw this point, so he did not intend to fight to the death. While his subordinates were fighting with the people of the heavenly Qin continent, the Blood Wolf King turned around and prepared to rush out of the encirclement. He didn't even care about his own men. However, Zhang Qi sneered. It was impossible for Blood Wolf King to escape. Everyone present could escape, except for Blood Wolf King. From the beginning to the end, Zhang Qi's eyes were locked on Blood Wolf King. "Blood Wolf King, where do you think you can escape to today?" With a cold shout, Zhang Qi immediately rushed towards the Blood Wolf King. Hearing Zhang Qi's angry shout, the Blood Wolf King's face darkened. "Old man, it's you again. You're courting death." Back in Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Blood Wolf King had fought with Zhang Qi, so the two of them were not unfamiliar with each other. However, at that time, Zhang Qi was injured, so she wasn't the Blood Wolf King's opponent. But now, the situation was completely reversed. Zhang Qi's current condition could be said to be at her peak, while the Blood Wolf King's injuries were not light because of the previous breakout. Therefore, Zhang Qi directly suppressed the Blood Wolf King. "This old man said that you can't escape today. The young master has named you to be captured alive." While fighting fiercely, Zhang Qi shouted coldly. In less than an hour, the Blood Wolf King's subordinates were all killed by the warriors of the heavenly Qin continent. Even the Dao sovereign warrior was killed by Si Kongming. Subsequently, with the help of Si Kongming, Zhang Qi and Si Kongming successfully captured the Blood Wolf King, crippled his cultivation, and directly took him to the Moonless Empire's barracks. Zhang Qi and Si Kongming had been waiting for the end of the battle with Chu Wuming in the barracks. At this time, Zhang Qi and Si Kongming strode in with the crippled Blood Wolf King. "Kneel!" A kick landed on the Blood Wolf King's knee. With a burst of pain, the Blood Wolf King knelt down in front of Xiao Chun and Chu Wuming. Sitting on the high platform in the middle, Xiao Chun looked coldly at the Blood Wolf King below and said expressionlessly, "Blood Wolf King, I said that one day I will personally chop off your head. It seems that day has come." Hearing Xiao Chun's words, the Blood Wolf King was silent. At this point, he naturally knew what his ending would be. However, he never thought that as one of the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, he would lose his life because of a woman and even lead to the destruction of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. He did not answer Xiao Chun's words, nor did he beg for mercy. Although the Blood Wolf King was hateful, he was still a man. At least in the face of death, he could still maintain his calm and did not kneel down and beg for mercy. Looking at the silent Blood Wolf King kneeling below, Xiao Chun did not have the intention to ridicule him. He slowly walked to the front of the Blood Wolf King. The black dragon sword was already in Shao Chen's hand. With a flash of the sword, the Blood Wolf King's head flew into the air and fell to the ground not far from the corpse. There was no humiliation or torture. Instead, he cleanly ended the Blood Wolf King's life with a single slash. After doing all this, Shao Chun lightly spat out a mouthful of turbid air. With the Blood Wolf King dead, the hatred in his heart had also disappeared. Next, there was no need for Shao Chun to do anything. One day later, the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was successfully breached. According to the agreement, the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army was all led by the demonic beasts of the Tiger Leopard Ridge. As a result, the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was naturally filled with a reign of terror. The soldiers guarding the city, whether dead or alive, were all devoured by the demonic beasts. However, because of the restraint of the two beast emperors, these demonic beasts did not attack the ordinary people. The imperial capital was taken, and the imperial family, including the two retired emperors and the emperor, were all dead. As a result, the Heavenly Wolf Empire was declared to be destroyed. Not remaining in the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Shao Chun brought Zhang Qi and the others back to the imperial capital of the Moonless Empire the day after the battle ended. Now that the matters of the Moonless Empire had been settled, it was time for Shao Chun to leave. He went to the Tianqi sect and the Windless Sacred Sect to start a new chapter in the Tiana continent. Shao Chun was actually looking forward to the sacred sect that had a true saint expert. He did not know what kind of cultivation secret realms there were, and how strong the geniuses in the sacred sect would be. Chapter 513. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the Tiana continent was stronger than the Tianqian continent. But where was it stronger? It was the sacred sects or sacred clans that were overseen by saints. Therefore, Shao Chun was looking forward to the Tianfeng zone, because this was the reason why Shao Chun had come to the Tiana continent. After spending a few days with Bairu Yue in the imperial capital, Shao Chun decided to spend as much time as possible with his mother, because he was about to leave and he didn't know how long it would take for him to return. The mother and son talked about some trivial matters. Of course, Bairu Yue also warned Shao Chun a lot. First, she told Shao Chun to know how to protect himself and take care of himself outside. Secondly, Bairu Yue was worried about Shao Qing. After all, there was still no news of Shao Qing. It was obvious that he wasn't in Danyang County. Shao Chun also told Bairu Yue that he would pay close attention to news of his father. As long as he found his father, Shao Chun would immediately inform his mother. He didn't need to worry about Bairu Yue's safety. No one in the Moonless Empire dared to harm her. Shao Chun wasn't worried about this. However, before he left, he also needed to make arrangements for the other warriors in the Tianqian continent. After all, everyone also needed to improve their strength. According to the discussion between Shao Chun and the Burning Sky ruler, the two of them finally decided to let some people stay in the Moonless Empire, or rather, in Danyang County. As for the others, they could go out and gain experience. Those who were talented and wanted to improve would leave the Moonless Empire to gain experience and find their own opportunities. As for those who didn't want to go out and risk their lives, they would stay in the Moonless Empire. Firstly, they could strengthen the Tianqian residents in the Moonless Empire. Secondly, they could receive the Tianqian continent warriors who would arrive in the Moonless Empire in the future. Whether they left or stayed, it was up to them. Shao Chun and the Burning Sky ruler didn't force them. This was an arrangement for the warriors of the Tianqian continent. Secondly, for the younger generation of warriors, other than Mu Feng, Shao Chun planned to let them stay in the Moonless Empire and cultivate in the Royal Academy. After all, these young people's cultivation was still too low. Although the Royal Academy couldn't compare to the Sage Sects, the cultivation environment before the Tao Querying Realm was actually not much different from the Sage Sects. Furthermore, the Royal Academy had the Path of Tao, which could allow people to break through to the Querying Realm faster and more. The younger generation of warriors stayed in the Royal Academy according to Shao Chen's plan. As for Mu Feng, he had already used the Path of Tao Querying Realm. Xiao Chen planned to bring him along to participate in the sage sect selection. It would be best if he could enter the sage sect. Even if he could only become an ordinary disciple of the Tianfeng Xingzong, it would still be a good thing for Mu Feng. After all, Mu Feng was a peerless genius. It would be a waste for him to stay in the Moonless Empire. After about 7 days, Xiao Chun finished arranging everything. Whether it was Bairua or the warriors of the Tianjin continent, they all had their own plans and plans. For example, the Burning Sky ruler still had the title of retired emperor of the Moonless Empire. However, after Xiao Chun left, he wouldn't continue to stay in the Moonless Empire. Instead, he would leave to search for his own opportunities to break through. It was the same for Zhang Qi and Si Kongming. The two of them also wanted to leave the Moonless Empire to search for the possibility of breaking through to the Dao Emperor realm. The only thing that surprised Xiao Chun was Gu Xiao. He didn't plan to stay, but he also didn't plan to go out to train. Instead, he wanted to follow Xiao Chun to the Tianfeng Xingzong. According to Gu Xiao, he only wanted to follow Xiao Chun. Even if he was just a follower, he was willing to do so. Faced with Gu Xiao's choice, Xiao Chun was touched. However, there was nothing he could do. In the end, Xiao Chun could only let Gu Xiao stay in the Moonless Empire and wait for him to successfully enter the Tianfeng Xingzong. If he could let Gu Xiao enter the Tianfeng Xingzong as his follower, Xiao Chun would send someone to inform Gu Xiao. Gu Xiao had no objection to Xiao Chen's decision. Everything was basically settled. In the end, when Chu Wuming returned, Xiao Chen also bid farewell to Chu Wuming. It was a cloudless day. By Ryue, the Burning Sky ruler, Chu Wuming, and a group of heavenly Chun continent cultivators were at the imperial capital's teleportation array. Everyone had gathered here to send Xiao Chen off. Today was the day that Xiao Chun would head to the Tianqi sect. Gu Lingyao, Mu Feng, Tiang Guichuan, and the others were accompanying him. Looking at everyone, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Everyone, take care. Young master, you too. You must protect yourself when you're outside." Hearing this, everyone from the heavenly Chun continent replied in unison, "Brother Xiao, have a safe trip." I believe that it won't be long before Brother Zhao's name resounds throughout the Tianfeng prefecture. Chu Wuming smiled. "Chen you must be careful," Bai Ryue said with a reluctant expression. Everyone took turns to bid farewell to Xiao Chun. It was also at this moment that Yang Heng and Chen Ju, who had not appeared before, suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Chun. Previously, when Chu Wushuang and Chu Wuk were killed, the two of them did not appear. Xiao Chun thought that they had gone to Tianfeng Xingzong. However, even if the two of them were present, Chu Wuming would not dare to touch them. After all, the two of them were the core disciples of Tianfeng Xingzong. Their statuses were noble, and they were not people that the Moonless Empire could afford to offend. With a faint smile on their faces, the two of them did not seem to care about Chu Wuk and Chu Wushuang's life and death. Instead, they were more interested in Xiao Chun. Looking at Xiao Chun, Yang Heng spoke first. "Brother Xiao Chun, you've gone to the Tianqi sect to participate in the sage sect selection, right? It seems that it won't be long before we can become brothers." Yang Heng appeared to be very friendly. Regarding this, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Perhaps. However, when the time comes, I might need the two of you to take care of me." "Haha, Brother Xiao, you must be joking. With Brother Zhao's talent, becoming a core disciple is already a done deal. When the time comes, we might need Brother Xiao to take care of us." Yang Heng laughed heartily. Yang Heng and Chen Ju were also preparing to return to Tianfeng Xingzong. After all, Chu Wuk and Chu Wushuang were already dead. There was no need for the two of them to stay here. It was also because they heard that Xiao Chun was going to participate in the sage sect selection that the two of them rushed over. Following Yang Heng's words, Chen Ju, who had been silent all this while, spoke up softly, "Don't stand out too much during the sage sect selection. Otherwise, there won't be any benefits." Chen Ju's words could be considered as a reminder to Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun cupped his hands and thanked him. Following which, the two of them left. Under the lead of Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun and Mu Feng stepped into the teleportation portal. Following a flash of light that shot up into the sky, everyone's figures quickly disappeared into the portal. Xiaochen left and stepped onto the path towards Sage Sect. Watching the light of the teleportation portal slowly disappear, Chu Wuming's gaze deepened as he muttered softly, "Brother Xiao, just how far can you go? In Tianfeng Shengzong, where geniuses gather, can you shine as brightly as you did in the Wuyue Empire?" Chapter 514. With regards to Tianfeng Shengzong, Chu Wuming naturally revered him. After all, he wasn't much older than Xiao Chun. Naturally, he had the insolence and hot-bloodedness unique to young people in his heart. He wanted to climb to the peak of martial arts forever. However, as a member of the imperial family, Chu Wuming couldn't abandon the Moonless Empire and go to Tianfeng Shengzong. Therefore, Chu Wuming hoped that Xiao Chan would be able to set off a storm in the windless sacred sect where geniuses gathered. He firmly believed that with Xiao Chen's strength, even in a place like the windless sacred sect, he would be able to blossom with his own views. In Chu Wuming's eyes, Xiao Chan was such a person. No matter where he was, no one could cover up Xiao Chen's brilliance. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Xiao Chen left. Chu Wuming felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Not only was Xiao Chen the only friend Chu Wuming could be said to be his only true friend. As for the others, they were just flatterers. He turned around and returned to the imperial palace. At the same time, the others also dispersed one after another. After Xiao Chen left, many of the Heavenly Chun Continent's warriors also prepared to leave, including the Burning Sky ruler. Unaware of Chu Wuming's thoughts, Xiao Chen quickly arrived at the border of the Moonless Empire through the teleportation array. After a day of hurrying, they arrived at Tianqi City, where there was a teleportation array that led directly to the Tianqi sect. With the existence of the teleportation array, the Heavenly River Continent's warriors had a unique advantage in hurrying. No matter how far the distance was, as long as there was a teleportation array, they could quickly arrive. In less than 2 days, Xiao Chun and his party arrived at the Tianqi sect. It was a pure land with few people. Like a fairyland, it was surrounded by mountains. In the middle of the mountains, there was a clear lake. The lake water was blue like a mirror. Around the lake, there were intricate ancient buildings. This was where the Celestial Equal sect was located. How is it? The scenery of my Tianqi sect isn't bad, right? Gu Lingyao was very proud of the Tianqi sect scenery and flaunted to Xiao Chun with a smile. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and replied, "It is indeed a paradise on earth." The scenery of the Celestial Equal sect was indeed breathtaking. Living and cultivating in such a place made one's heart unconsciously calm down. Just the Celestial Equal sect alone had such a paradise. He wondered what the Tianfeng Shengzong would be like. While Xiao Chan was full of praise for the Tianqi sect, Mu Feng was completely immersed in the beautiful scenery in front of him. In the face of Xiao Chen's praise, Gu Lingyao was very satisfied and skipped along with Xiao Chun to see Gu Qi. As for Mu Feng, someone naturally arranged a place for him to stay. Tian Wuchuan and the other elders also left one after another. Following behind Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun came to a bamboo courtyard by the lake. This was Gu Qi's residence. When Xiao Chun arrived, Gu Qi was already waiting in the bamboo courtyard. Seeing Xiao Chun walk over, Gu Qi smiled slightly. "Is everything done?" "Yes. Thank you for your help, Sectmaster." Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chun cupped his hands and thanked him. This time, the Tianqi sect had contributed greatly to the successful destruction of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Without the Tianqi sect blocking the Qingyang sect, the outcome would have been difficult to predict. In the face of Xiao Chen's thanks, Gu Qi waved his hand indifferently and smiled. "It's a small matter. Furthermore, my Tianqi sect has also obtained a lot of benefits this time. It can be considered as both sides taking what they need." Although the Tianqi Empire had fought a great battle with the Qingyang sect this time and lost some disciples and deacons, they had also obtained a lot of benefits. The treasures that the Heavenly Wolf Empire had promised to the Qingyang sect had all been obtained by the Tianqi sect according to the agreement. Therefore, not only did the Tianqi sect not suffer any losses this time, but they had also made a huge profit. Gu Qi did not care about this matter. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at his daughter, Gu Lingyao, and said with a smile, "Lingyao, you can leave first. Xiao Chun and I have some things to talk about in private." "Humph, what can't you say in front of me?" "Really?" Hearing Gu Qi's words, Gu Lingyao immediately pouted in dissatisfaction. However, although she said that, she still turned around and left the bamboo courtyard. Looking at his daughter's back, Gu Qi helplessly shook his head and smiled bitterly. Then, after Gu Lingyao left the bamboo courtyard, Gu Qi pointed at the seat opposite him and motioned for Xiao Chen to sit. Curious as to what Gu Qi had to say to him, that even Gu Lingyao could not listen, Gu Qi sat down and asked with a smile, "Xiao Chen, what do you think of my daughter?" Gu Qi suddenly asked. Hearing this, Xiao Chen did not understand Gu Qi's meaning for a moment and could only go along with it. He nodded slightly and said, Miss Gu is very good. Her looks are devastatingly beautiful, and her personality is very cheerful and lively. Her talent is also not bad. Very good, very good." Not understanding Gu Qi's meaning, Xiao Chun could only reply this way. However, Gu Qi's next sentence completely stunned Xiao Chun. Gu Qi said with an inexplicable smile, "Since that's the case, why don't I betroth Ling Yao to you?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun immediately trembled. "What's going on? Betroth Gu Ling Yao to me? Are you kidding me?" Looking at Gu Qi in disbelief, Xiao Chun asked embarrassedly, "Sect Master, please don't joke around, okay? Miss Gu and you just praised Ling Yao. Since Ling Yao is so perfect in your heart, do you think that she is not worthy of you? That's not what I meant, but let me put it this way. To be honest with you, Sect Master, this junior is already married. So, what's wrong with me getting married? What's wrong with us cultivators having a few close female friends? It's not just us men. Some powerful women also have a few close female friends. This is very normal. Since you have a good impression of Ling Yao, then this matter is settled. I will immediately announce to the public that you and Ling Yao will first settle this marriage. In the future, when the two of you have made some progress in your cultivation and slowly develop feelings for each other, it won't be too late to get married." Xiao Qin didn't expect Gu Qi to do this and didn't even give him a chance to refuse. After speaking, Gu Qi didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to reply. He immediately circulated the spiritual energy in his body and spoke in a deep voice. With the support of spiritual energy, Gu Qi's voice quickly spread to every corner of the Tianqi sect. "Elders and disciples of the Tianqi sect, listen up. Today, my disciple Xiao Chun and my only daughter, Gu Lingyao, cherish each other and are in love with each other. Therefore, I specially betroth my only daughter, Gu Lingyao, to Xiao Chun as his wife. 3 days later, they will be betrothed first. When they have made some progress in their cultivation, they will choose another auspicious day to get married." Gu Qi's voice was very clear. At the same time, everyone in the Tianqi sect clearly heard his words. Chapter 515. As soon as Gu Qi said that, it caused an uproar in the celestial equal sect, as Gu Qi's only daughter, coupled with Gu Lingyao's looks and talent, it was no exaggeration to say that she was the dream goddess of countless people in the celestial equal sect. Many disciples, including the genius disciples, had always regarded Gu Lingyao as their goddess and never allowed anyone to taint her. But now, the woman in their hearts was suddenly betrothed to someone else by Gu Qi. Moreover, the person was someone they had never heard of. At this moment, many disciples in the entire celestial equal sect could be seen shouting angrily, "Damn it! Who is this Xiao Chun? I must cripple him. What does Sect Master mean by this? How can he betroth senior sister Ling Yao to someone he has never heard of? Xiao Chun? Is he a disciple of our celestial equal sect? Why haven't I heard of him before? Xiao Chun, don't let me find you. Otherwise, I will definitely cripple you." In an instant, Xiao Chun became the public enemy of all the male disciples of the celestial equal sect. Countless of them declared that they would cripple Xiao Chun. Moreover, it wasn't just them. Gu Lingyao, who had left the bamboo courtyard earlier, also heard her father's words in her residence. Her face sank, and she immediately wanted to rush to Gu Qi's residence. Could it be that he asked her to leave just to talk to Xiao Chun about this? She was furious, but apart from that, Gu Lingyao also felt inexplicably shy. She couldn't help but blush. The entire Celestial Equals sect was in an uproar because of Gu Qi's words. At the same time, Xiao Chun, who was sitting opposite Gu Qi in the bamboo courtyard, was already in a daze. He stared at Gu Qi in disbelief. After a long while, Xiao Chun spoke in a daze. "Sect Master, what you doing? Miss Gu and I, we all right. What's wrong? Don't tell me you don't fancy my daughter? Or do you think Lingyao isn't worthy of you?" Before Xiao Chun could finish his sentence, Gu Qi interrupted him. Hearing this, Xiao Chun said with a bitter expression, "That's not what I meant. It's just that Miss Gu and I, our relationship is completely—" Xiao Chun wanted to say that there was no romantic relationship between her and Gu Lingyao, but Gu Qi interrupted Xiao Chun again. "Since it's not, then it's fine. Lingyao is my only daughter. I'll say the ugly words first. In the future, if you dare to let Lingyao down or let her suffer the slightest bit of harm, I'll teach you a lesson." Upon hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chun was completely speechless. He didn't expect that Gu Qi, as the sect master, would force a matchmaking ceremony without asking for his opinion or giving him a chance to reject. Great! Gu Qi had already announced that the engagement would be held in 3 days. With a bitter expression, Gu Lingyao rushed in and shouted at Gu Qi with a furious expression. "Father, what's the meaning of this? Why are you betrothing me to this guy?" Gu Lingyao turned to Xiao Chun and blushed. However, she still shouted at Xiao Chun. "Also, did you say something to father?" Facing Gu Lingyao's scolding, Xiao Chun felt helpless. "What the F***ck did I say? I didn't say anything. I was forced to do something that was beyond my ability." He wanted to explain, but the father and daughter pair didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to speak. As soon as Gu Lingyao finished speaking, Gu Qi immediately shouted in a deep voice, "Shut up, little girl. How can you scold me like this? I'm the one who betrothed you to Xiao Chun." Xiao Chun didn't say anything. "This is my decision. Why? Do you have any objections?" Gu Qi shouted in a deep voice. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was actually a little touched. This old guy finally said something fair. However, Xiao Chun quickly reacted. "Damn it, why am I feeling touched here? Wasn't all of this caused by Gu Qi alone?" After hearing Gu Qi's words, Gu Lingyao didn't want to let it go. She went to Gu Qi's side and pulled his arm. She pouted and said coquettishly, "Father, I'm still young. I don't want to get married so soon. I still want to spend more time with you." "All right, this matter has been decided. Let me ask you one question. Do you really not want to marry Xiao Chun? If that's the case, then forget it." Facing Gu Lingyao's coquettishness, Gu Qi deliberately put on a straight face. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Gu Lingyao didn't reply. Her face, which was already red, became even redder. She also avoided Xiao Chun's gaze. In the end, she lowered her head and said coquettishly, "I'm not going to talk to you anymore." After saying that, she lowered her head and ran out. She didn't even look at Gu Lingyao. He didn't know what was wrong with Gu Lingyao. Just now, Xiao Chun secretly hoped that Gu Lingyao would directly reject him. If that happened, and he agreed from the side, perhaps Gu Qi would really take back his order. However, who would have thought that Gu Lingyao would directly run away? This made Xiao Chun feel helpless. He thought to himself, what's wrong with this girl? He secretly complained about Gu Lingyao. Only Gu Qi looked at his daughter's back, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "All right, Xiao Chun, this matter is settled. 3 days later, I will personally witness your engagement ceremony. You can leave now. As for your residence, I have already arranged it for you. It's right next to Lingyao's. You two should get closer in the future." Without giving Xiao Chun any more chances, Gu Qi began to chase him away. Seeing this, Xiao Chun seemed to want to say something, but hesitated. However, in the end, he still left the bamboo courtyard with a bitter expression. Looking at Gu Qi's appearance, it It was useless to say anything. After Xiao Chun left, Guqi's face immediately revealed a sly smile. However, it quickly disappeared and a serious look flashed across his eyes. I hope this kid is reliable. Otherwise, Ling Yao is finished. Guqi sighed softly. As he spoke, he looked at the distant horizon. At the same time, an inexplicable mighty force slowly spread out from Guqi's body. If there was a saint present at this moment, he would definitely turn pale with fright. This was because the aura emitted from Guqi's body belonged to a saint. In other words, the sect master of the celestial Qi sect, Guqi, was not a half-step saint expert, as the world thought. He was a genuine saint expert, a true saint expert who had transcended the mortal world. A saint expert had hidden himself as a half-step saint and established a sect like the celestial Qi sect in Danyang County. It was obvious that Guqi was hiding from something. Chapter 516. Who would have thought that Guqi was actually a saint of the present age? He had deliberately concealed his cultivation level and identity. Guqi must have been hiding something in his heart. However, Xiao Chen obviously had no idea about these things. He left Guqi's residence helplessly. Although Guqi had already told Xiao Chen that his room was next to Gu Lingyao's, Xiao Chen didn't know where Gu Lingyao lived. Moreover, it was his first time in the Tianqi sect, and he couldn't find it all. Sighing helplessly, Xiao Chen shook his head and smiled bitterly. I've been cheated badly this time. Forget it. Let's find someone to ask about his residence first. He felt extremely helpless. What was this? He was cheated by Guqi for no reason. However, it was too late to say anything now. He would take it one step at a time and go to his own residence first. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen planned to find someone to ask where Gu Lingyao's residence was. As long as he found Gu Lingyao's residence, he would naturally be able to find his own residence. Perhaps it was because this was Guqi's residence, so there was no one around. Thinking about it, as the sect master, Guqi's residence wasn't a place where random people could enter and leave as they pleased. He had no choice but to walk all the way out. While Xiao Chen was looking for passers-by, he didn't know that all the male disciples of the Tianqi sect were also looking for Xiao Chen. Many disciples were fighting to be the first to inquire about Xiao Chen's news. Unfortunately, no one in the entire Tianqi sect knew about Xiao Chen's identity. Walking all the way out, Xiao Chen finally met a group of male disciples wearing the Tianqi sect's uniform after walking a long distance away from Guqi's residence. There were 5 of them. Seeing this, Xiao Chen took the initiative to ask, "Senior brothers, I would like to inquire about something. I hope senior brothers can give me some pointers." His attitude was polite. Upon hearing that, the 5 disciples were rather good-natured. The leader smiled and said, "Junior brother, you're too polite. There's no harm in asking." It could be seen that the atmosphere in the Tianqi sect was rather good, and the disciples were also rather united. Upon hearing the leader's words, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "I would like to inquire about Senior Sister Gu's residence. I wonder if senior brothers know about it." The senior Sister Gu that Xiao Chen mentioned was naturally Gu Lingyao. Upon hearing his words, the 5 disciples were taken aback and looked at Xiao Chen in doubt. They didn't understand why Xiao Chen was inquiring about Gu Lingyao's residence. But soon, the leading disciple seemed to have guessed something, but he still maintained his composure and said with a smile, "Senior brother's residences. Don't tell me you're also." Junior brother's face revealed a smile that all men understood. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chen naturally knew that junior brother was getting the wrong idea. He explained, "Senior brother, you've misunderstood. I've just entered the Tianqi sect, and my residence happened to be next to Senior Sister Gu's. I couldn't find it for the time being, so I'm here to seek guidance from senior brother." He wasn't lying. Xiao Chen had indeed just joined the Tianqi sect and couldn't find his own residence for a while. However, after hearing this, the leading disciple's smile widened, and there was even a hint of coldness in his voice. "Oh, I see. May I know your name, junior brother? In the future, we'll be considered as fellow disciples." "Senior brother, you're too polite. I'm Xiao Chen." Xiao Chen replied. Xiao Chen. Upon hearing these two words, the expressions of the 5 disciples changed immediately. The leader even revealed an as expected expression. He immediately changed his previous friendliness and said with a sneer, "You're indeed Xiao Chen. Damn it, you lecher. How dare you have designs on senior sister Gu? Today, we'll teach you a lesson and let you know the rules of the Tianqi sect." They had already guessed Xiao Chen's identity. After all, Xiao Chen walked out of Gu Qi's residence, and many Tianqi sect disciples couldn't find any information about Xiao Chen. Therefore, the leader guessed that Xiao Chen was most likely not a disciple of the Tianqi sect, or perhaps a disciple who had just entered the Tianqi sect. Therefore, during the conversation with Xiao Chen just now, the leader had already vaguely guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Now that Xiao Chen took the initiative to report his identity, everything was confirmed. After confirming Xiao Chen's identity, the expressions of the 5 disciples changed instantly. Previously, they were extremely friendly, but now they surrounded Xiao Chen. Each of them looked furious, and their eyes were burning with raging flames, as if they couldn't wait to devour him alive. "Senior brothers, what are you? Is there some misunderstanding? I've just joined the Tianqi sect. I don't think I have any grudges with you, right?" Xiao Chen didn't want to cause any trouble. Faced with such a situation, he opened his mouth to explain. However, in the face of Xiao Chen's explanation, the 5 disciples shouted in unison, "Misunderstanding? Junior brother, don't worry. There's no misunderstanding. We're looking for you." "Looking for me? Senior brother, what do you mean? We don't know each other. Why are you looking for me?" "Why? Kid, keep pretending. A mere new disciple actually dares to have designs on senior sister Gu. Although we don't know what kind of bewitching potion you fed sect master, you're courting death if you want to fight senior sister Gu alone. Today, senior brothers and the rest of us will teach you how to behave." After hearing that, Xiao Chen immediately understood the reason. So it was because of Gu Lingyao. He felt helpless. Is Gu Lingyao that popular in the Tianqi sect? Just because of Gu Qi's marriage, he instantly became the common enemy of all the male disciples in the Tianqi sect? At the same time, Xiao Chen also secretly cursed Gu Qi. It's all his fault. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have ended up like this. After knowing the truth, Xiao Chen looked at the 5 disciples and said rather gloomily, "Senior brothers, listen to me. Actually, I'm also a victim. It's all the sect master's fault. If it weren't for him," he wanted to explain, but in the face of Xiao Chen's explanation, the 5 disciples clearly didn't intend to listen. The leader immediately threw a punch and shouted coldly, "Do you think I'll listen to your sophistry? Cut the crap. Today, I'll teach you how to behave properly." He didn't give Xiao Chen a chance to explain at all. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's face sank. Are these guys taking advantage of me? I didn't want to cause trouble. Do these guys think I'm afraid of them? The result was needless to say. How could the 5 of them be a match for Xiao Chen? They were beaten up by Xiao Chen in no time. In less than 100 breaths, the 5 of them were lying at Xiao Chen's feet with bruises all over their faces. Xiao Chen came to the leader of the disciples, squatted down, and asked him with a helpless expression, "Can you listen to me now?" "Yes, yes, yes. Senior brother, if you have any instructions, just say it. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I'll do it without hesitation." Facing Xiao Chen, the disciple's face was filled with horror as he nodded repeatedly. Chapter 517. After being taught a lesson by Xiao Chen, the 5 disciples had clearly learned their lesson. Their faces were no longer filled with anger. Helplessly shaking his head with a bitter smile, Xiao Chen thought to himself, "These guys are really despicable. I tried to talk to them nicely, but they didn't listen. They just had to beat them up." Looking at the terrified disciple, Xiao Chen said calmly, "You should know where Senior Gu's residence is, right?" I know. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the disciple nodded repeatedly. Then, he respectfully told Xiao Chen where Gu Lingyao's residence was. After knowing where Gu Lingyao lived, Xiao Chen did not make things difficult for the 5 of them and left on his own. Soon, he found Gu Lingyao's residence according to the disciples' words. Needless to say, Gu Lingyao's residence was not something that an ordinary disciple could have. Even some of the elders' residences were not as good as Gu Lingyao's. Not only was the environment beautiful, but the spirit energy was also extremely dense. Next to Gu Lingyao's residence, Xiao Chun found an empty courtyard. It should be his residence. After pushing open the door and entering, just as Xiao Chun walked into the small courtyard, a maid came out to greet him. When she saw Xiao Chun, the maid was stunned at first. However, she quickly recovered and bowed respectfully. "May I ask if you are Senior Xiao Chun?" She must have received a notice in advance and knew that Xiao Chun was the owner of this courtyard. Hearing the maid's question, Xiao Chun nodded slightly and said, "That's right, it's me." At the same time that Xiao Chun had successfully found his residence, on the other side, the 5 disciples who had been beaten up by Xiao Chun had quickly spread the news about Xiao Chun. They had no intention of taking revenge on Xiao Chun. It was all because of Gu Lingyao. When they heard that Xiao Chun was actually a new disciple and that Gu Qi had arranged for Xiao Chen's residence to be next to Gu Lingyao's residence, the countless male disciples in the Tianqi sect were once again in an uproar. Damn it, this guy is just a new disciple. What right does he have to live next to Senior Gu? That's right. Let's go and find him now. If I don't teach him a lesson today, how can I swallow this anger in my chest? After hearing the news about Xiao Chen's news, many disciples spontaneously rushed to Xiao Chen's residence. They all admired Gu Lingyao, but they also knew very well that Gu Lingyao definitely wouldn't take a fancy to them. But wasn't there a saying that a goddess would always belong to the masses? If I can't have her, I won't let other men have her either. Otherwise, I won't be happy. Inexplicably, he became the public enemy of all the male disciples in the Tianqi sect, unaware that everyone was rushing to his residence in anger. At that moment, Xiao Chun casually strolled around his residence. Putting everything else aside, the place that Gu Qi had arranged for him was pretty good. At least, Xiao Chun was satisfied with it. Xiao Chun familiarized himself with his surroundings. It was at this moment that the servant girl from before hurriedly ran to Xiao Chun with a worried look on her face. "Senior brother Xiao Chun, bad news." The maid trotted all the way to Xiao Chun without caring about etiquette and said anxiously. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "What's wrong?" "Senior brother Xiao Chun, they're here for you. They've already surrounded the courtyard." "For me? Who?" Of course, it's those male disciples who admire Senior Sister Gu. When they heard that Senior Brother is going to be engaged to Senior Sister Gu, they were jealous. I don't know who told them that Senior Brother is staying here, but now hundreds of disciples have surrounded the courtyard. Hundreds of male disciples had surrounded the courtyard, and more were on their way here. Upon hearing the maid's words, Xiao Chun was on the verge of tears. What the hell was going on? He was being hated by everyone for no reason at all. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chun vaguely heard a series of angry shouts coming from outside the courtyard. "Xiao Chun, get out here. I want to duel with you." "Xiao Chun, are you going to be a coward?" "Xiao Chun, do you think you can hide today? I'll give you 10 breaths of time. If you don't come out, we'll fight our way in." The shouts were all for Xiao Chun to come out and fight. What duel? What one-on-one? Xiao Chun was incomparably depressed. Damn it, do they really think I'm a sick cat when I'm not showing my might? With a cold glint in his eyes, Xiao Chun strode out of the courtyard. At this moment, the courtyard door slowly opened, and Xiao Chun strode out of the courtyard. As for the maid, she hid behind the door in fear. Seeing that Xiao Chun had finally appeared, the disciples quieted down for a moment. At the same time, Xiao Chun also looked around to the crowd and said indifferently, "I have no grudges with any of you. Do you really think that I, Xiao Chun, am easy to bully?" His tone was very calm, but there was a hint of coldness in it. Originally, Xiao Chun did not want to cause trouble. Moreover, he had no grudges with these disciples in the past, so Xiao Chun did not want to provoke them. Moreover, he had been completely tricked by Gu Lingyao. Originally, he wanted to keep the peace. However, these guys had surrounded his residence and made a ruckus. If he could tolerate it, what else could he do? Moreover, Xiao Chen's temper was not very good. At this moment, anger had already risen in his heart. Hearing this, the crowd looked at each other. However, soon, The leader jumped out and shouted angrily. Xiao Chun, you know why we're here. You're just a new disciple. What right do you have to have senior goo? We can't accept it. You can't accept it. Hearing this disciple's words, Xiao Chun was a little amused. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a disdainful smile. Is there something wrong with your brain? You still can't accept it? Do you think this thing between a man and a woman is some F**king competition or a lucky draw? So what if I'm new? Can't I get Gu Lingyao's favor? While Xiao Chun was angry at these guys' thinking, he also felt that it was funny. Are you kidding me? This is a F**king matter between a man and a woman. Now you're saying that you can't accept it? You're simply an idiot. He did not hide the disdain in his heart. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, many of the disciples present were stunned at first. However, they were soon filled with anger. A few of the leading disciples strode forward and shouted angrily. Xiao Chun, cut the crap. Do you have the guts to fight with us? Fight? Hearing this, Xiao Chun laughed. These guys were a bunch of cowards. He did not dare to pursue Gu Lingyao, but he also did not allow other men to get close to Gu Lingyao. Hearing these disciples' angry shouts, Xiao Chun replied coldly. A bunch of cowards. There's no need for a fight. I'll give you 10 breaths of time to get out of my sight. Otherwise, after 10 breaths of time, you'll have to bear the consequences. Chapter 5:18. Facing the hundreds of disciples before him, Xiao Chun obviously couldn't fight them. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because these guys were too weak. Xiao Chun couldn't even muster the slightest bit of interest. Think about it. What kind of person could do such a thing in the Equal Sky sect? A true genius wouldn't do such an idiotic thing. Therefore, the hundreds of disciples in front of Xiao Chen's residence were only ordinary disciples of the Equal Sky sect. They weren't on the same level as Xiao Chun. So, how could Xiao Chun fight such people? It was meaningless. Disappear within 10 breaths. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the disciples immediately burst into laughter. Is this kid crazy? He actually wants us to disappear within 10 breaths? Why? Do you want to fight against hundreds of us alone? They laughed out loud. However, before they could finish laughing, there was a muffled bang. The person closest to Xiao Chun had already been sent flying. Xiao Chun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these guys. Moreover, he knew very well that it was useless to reason with these idiots. The best way was probably to talk with his fists. Sure enough, after Xiao Chun sent a person flying with a punch, the crowd's laughter came to an abrupt end. Each and every one of them were like ducks that had their necks pinched. They couldn't make a single sound. They were a little shocked. No one had expected Xiao Chun to attack as soon as he said so. He didn't care that there were hundreds of them. Moreover, after sending a person flying, Xiao Chun didn't have any intention of stopping. His feet moved, and he immediately rushed into the crowd. Like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, how could these ordinary disciples of the Equal Sky sect be a match for Xiao Chun? For a moment, outside Xiao Chen's residence, one could see figures flying into the sky from afar. They were like fireworks. Attack together. Take down this kid first. Seeing that Xiao Chun was like a hot knife through butter, someone shouted angrily. However, just as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun appeared in front of him. Xiao Chun smiled coldly and said indifferently, "You'd better go to heaven." As he spoke, he punched the disciple's chin. Without any surprise, the disciple immediately shot up into the sky like a rocket and then fell heavily to the ground. Hundreds of people were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of Xiao Chun. The maidservant who was hiding behind the courtyard door saw the scene in front of her. Her small mouth was already agape, and she looked as if she had seen a ghost. Previously, she was worried that Xiao Chun would be beaten up by these people. But now, it seemed that there was no need to worry about Xiao Chun at all. These hundreds of people were no match for Xiao Chun. The battle came and went quickly. In less than 15 minutes, the hundreds of disciples were lying on the ground, wailing in pain. My hand is broken. My leg is broken. Damn it, we're from the same sect. How could you be so vicious? My face, I'm disfigured. What the F*** are you shouting for? With your looks, What's the difference between disfigurement and plastic surgery? On the other hand, this young master relies on his face to make a living. The disciples wailed one after another. Xiao Chun was speechless when he heard this. The little anger in his heart quickly dissipated. These guys did not have any killing intent in the first place. It was just that they were a little stupid, which was why they did such an irrational thing. Yes. These guys are just a little stupid. Their nature is still very good. Xiao Chun comforted himself in his heart. However, on the surface, he still deliberately pulled a long face and shouted, "Shut up. If I hear any more crying, do you believe that I will directly send you to heaven to stand side by side with the sun?" His voice wasn't loud, but as soon as these words came out, everyone immediately shut their mouths. It was as if they had pulled up their zippers. Their mouths were tightly shut, and even the sound of their breathing became extremely soft. Just a moment ago, they were extremely arrogant and clamoring to duel with Xiao Chun. But now, because of just one sentence, these guys were all obedient. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, Xiao Chun nodded in satisfaction and said, "Not bad. Now you can all scram." Hearing this, all the disciples ran away without any hesitation. Their speed was so fast that it made one blush with shame. In less than 10 breaths, hundreds of people had disappeared from Xiao Chun's courtyard. Xiao Chun was also stunned by the speed of these disciples' escape. He whispered softly, "These guys are all experts at escaping." Xiao Chun easily sent these people away. However, he still secretly thought that he had to think of a way to solve this matter. Regardless of whether the Tianqi sect's disciples would come to find trouble with him, Xiao Chun himself didn't want to be engaged to Gu Lingyao. To put it bluntly, there was no feeling between the two of them. Although Gu Lingyao was good-looking and had a very likable personality, Xiao Chun had no intention to talk about these romantic affairs. The whereabouts of Qin, Shuru, and Fairy of 100 Flowers were still unknown. How could Xiao Chun think about these things? He still had to think of a way. However, when he thought of Gu Qi's cunning appearance, Xiao Chun was filled with helplessness. The chances were slim. While Xiao Chun was dealing with Gu Lingyao's admirers, Gu Lingyao was sitting alone on an unknown mountain peak in the Tianqi sect. This was a place that Gu Lingyao loved to come to since she was young. This was because very few people would come here, and it was very quiet. Gu Lingyao sat on the edge of the cliff with her legs curled up. Looking at the sea of clouds below, she blushed and constantly scolded, "Damn Xiao Chun, bad Xiao Chun. It must be you. You must have said something to Father. That's why Father wants me to marry you. I don't want to be engaged to you. You didn't say anything to me. You didn't even give me a gift. I don't want you." At this moment, Gu Qi's figure appeared behind Gu Lingyao. He had a faint smile on his face as he said, "Girl, who don't you want?" The sudden voice startled Gu Lingyao. She quickly turned to look at Gu Qi. For a moment, she was like a child who had done something wrong. She didn't dare to look into Gu Qi's eyes. She lowered her head and blushed. Looking at Gu Lingyao's bashful expression, Gu Qi's smile deepened. "Girl, I heard you say that you don't want anyone. Who is it? Don't tell me it's that Xiao Chun. What? Are you not satisfied with Father's decision? If that's the case, Father will withdraw the order." Hearing Gu Qi withdraw the order, Gu Lingyao didn't know why, but she immediately panicked. She couldn't care less about anything else. She hurriedly looked up at Gu Qi and said, Don't what?" Seeing Gu Lingyao's reaction, Gu Qi's smile grew wider. At the same time, he laughed inwardly. "Little girl, do you know that the older the ginger, the spicier it is? Do you think I, as your father, can't see through your little thoughts?" Chapter 519. Seeing the playful smile on Gu Qi's face, Gu Lingyao realized that she had fallen into her father's trap. Her face, which was already red, became even redder. She rolled her eyes at Gu Qi and shouted, "I'm ignoring you." With that, Gu Lingyao ignored Gu Qi and ran away with a red face. Gu Lingyao didn't know how to feel about her engagement with Xiao Chun. She only felt that her heart was in a mess. Looking at Gu Lingyao's departing figure, Gu Qi shook his head and smiled. "Little girl, there are some things that you will have to face eventually. With Xiao Chun by your side, I can rest assured. After speaking, Gu Qi exhorted for a moment, then looked in the direction of the Moonless Empire and said, "Since I've used this kid, I'll give him some compensation." The Burning Sky ruler is not far from breaking through to the Half-Saint realm. After speaking, Gu Qi disappeared. On this day, the Burning Sky ruler, who was about to leave, met Gu Qi in the Moonless Empire's imperial capital. No one knew what the two of them talked about, but after speaking, the Burning Sky ruler disappeared with Gu Qi. No one knew where they went. The warriors of the heavenly Chun continent all thought that the Burning Sky ruler had gone out to train. Unaware that Gu Qi had gone to find the Burning Sky ruler, Xiao Chun was currently cultivating in the courtyard. Originally, he was very curious about the Celestial Equal sect and planned to go to the Burning Sky sect's martial skill pavilion to see what kind of martial skills there were. However, looking at the current situation, it was probably impossible. With Gu Lingyao's matter, if he went to the martial skill pavilion now, he would definitely be surrounded by many disciples. Although Xiao Chun wasn't afraid, it wasn't worth it to make trouble for himself. Therefore, after thinking about it, Xiao Chun decided to obediently stay in his residence. After a day, no one came to find trouble with Xiao Chun. Obviously, after violently beating up those hundreds of disciples, Xiao Chun's fierce reputation had gradually spread in the Celestial Equal sect. Now, all the disciples of the Celestial Equal sect knew that the newcomer, Xiao Chun, wasn't an ordinary person. It was best not to provoke him. The hundreds of disciples from before were the best proof. Ordinary disciples didn't dare to look for Xiao Chun, but those genius disciples more or less received some news. Their masters told them not to provoke Xiao Chun if there was no reason. This result was naturally the best for Xiao Chun, so he was happy with peace and quiet. However, Xiao Chun didn't want to be married to Gu Lingyao. After a night of cultivation, until the next morning, Xiao finally went to Gu Lingyao's residence, Gu Gu. After a night cultivation, until the next morning, Xiao finally came to Gu Gu Gu. He didn't have any intention of getting married to Gu Lingyao, but Xiao Qin knew that he couldn't convince Gu Qi to rescind the order by himself. He needed Gu Lingyao's help. As Gu Qi's only daughter, if Gu Lingyao was unwilling to get married to Xiao Chun, then things would be easy to handle. Gu Qi couldn't possibly force his own daughter, right? Because of this, Xiao Chun came and prepared to talk to Gu Lingyao face to face. He gently knocked on the door. Soon, the door opened and a maid poked her head out. She looked at Xiao Chun and asked in confusion, "Who are you?" "I'm Xiao Chun. I'm here to look for Miss Gu." Xiao Chun replied softly to the maid's question. Xiao Chun? Hearing this, a smile quickly appeared on the maid's face. She put away the guard in her heart and warmly invited Xiao Chun into the courtyard. "Young Master Xiao Chun, you're here to look for Miss Gu, right? Miss Gu is in the backyard right now. Let me bring you there." Since she was so warmly welcoming him, the maid must have misunderstood. However, Xiao Chun didn't explain anything. This kind of situation would only make things worse if he explained. The most important thing now was to have a good talk with Gu Lingyao and reach a consensus. Under the maid's lead, Xiao Chun quickly arrived at the backyard. Once he entered the backyard, the maid happily shouted, "Miss, young Master Xiao Chun is here to see you." Following the maid's words, Gu Lingyao, who was originally cultivating in the courtyard, immediately looked at Xiao Chun. Seeing that it was indeed Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao's cheeks instantly turned red. "What are you doing here?" Although her face was red, Gu Lingyao pretended to be calm and asked. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chun didn't notice her abnormality and said with a calm expression, "There's something I want to talk to you about." It was a simple sentence, but in Gu Lingyao's ears, it caused her heart to be in a mess. What does he want to talk to me about? Could it be about the engagement? If he really wants to be engaged to me, what should I do? With thousands of thoughts in her mind, Gu Lingyao was momentarily stunned. In the end, it was Xiao Chun who coughed softly. Gu Lingyao came back to her senses, and a trace of panic flashed across her eyes. She said to her maid helplessly, "You can leave first. I want to talk to Xiao Chun alone." She was obviously nervous. At this moment, Xiao Chun also noticed that something was wrong with Gu Lingyao. After the maid left, The two of them sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard. Xiao Chen looked at Gu Lingyao and asked curiously, "Is Miss Gu feeling unwell?" "No, no." Being stared at by Xiao Chen, Gu Lingyao stuttered a little as she replied. She wasn't feeling unwell, but Gu Lingyao's appearance was clearly different from usual. Although she was puzzled, Xiao Chen didn't pursue the matter. Since Gu Lingyao didn't want to talk about it, then forget it. Business was more important. Xiao Chen's expression turned serious as she spoke to Gu Lingyao in an extremely serious manner. Miss Gu, about the engagement between the two of us. Engagement? What do you want? Don't tell me you really want to be engaged to me?" Xiao Chen had just opened her mouth when Gu Lingyao heard the word engagement. She was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She jumped up and spoke incoherently. Gu Lingyao's huge reaction startled Xiao Chen, but judging from her appearance, it seemed like she didn't want to be engaged to her. This made things easier. If Gu Lingyao wasn't willing to be engaged, then the two of them could just go to Gu Qi and reject him directly. With this thought, Xiao Chen said happily, "Miss Gu also doesn't want to be engaged? That's great. This way, the two of us can go directly to the sect master and ask him to retract his order. After all, Miss Gu is the only daughter of the sect master. The sect master definitely won't force Miss Gu." Gu Lingyao also didn't want to be engaged. This really saved a lot of trouble. The words that they had prepared were now saved. Originally, they thought that the matter would be settled smoothly. But after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the originally shy Gu Lingyao's expression instantly darkened. She looked at Xiao Chen angrily and questioned, "Xiao Chen, do you not want to be engaged to me? What do you mean by this? Do you think that I, Gu Lingyao, am not worthy of you?" Chapter 520. Xiao Chen was originally full of joy, but when he heard Gu Lingyao's words, he was dumbfounded on the spot. What was going on? How could she change her attitude so suddenly? Didn't she say that she didn't want to be engaged? The speed at which Gu Lingyao changed her attitude was so fast that Xiao Chen was not prepared for it all. Previously, she looked like she was unwilling to be engaged to him, but now she was inexplicably angry. Could it be that she wants to be engaged to me? This thought suddenly appeared in his mind, but as soon as it appeared, it was heartlessly rejected by Xiao Chen. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He had no feelings for Gu Lingyao at all. How could she be willing to be engaged to him? Here, although Gu Lingyao was usually eccentric, Xiao Chen knew that women like Gu Lingyao, whether it was Qin Shu, Flower Fairy, or Gu Lingyao, would not casually accept a man. These three women valued relationships very much, and at the same time, their standards were very high. Ordinary people could not enter their eyes at all. He and Gu Lingyao had only been together for less than a month, and there was almost no communication between them. Therefore, it was simply impossible. He did not believe that Gu Lingyao would have feelings for him, but this was not the case. After hearing that she was going to be engaged to Xiao Chen, Gu Lingyao's heart was in a mess. She was a little conflicted, a little happy, and a little angry, but more than that, she was shy. She did not know what was going on, but what was certain was that this was not love. At most, it was a good impression. At this moment, Gu Lingyao had a good impression of Xiao Chen, but that was all. There was still a long way to go before she fell in love with Xiao Chen. Of course, Xiao Chen did not know what Gu Lingyao was thinking. At this moment, after being reprimanded by Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen looked at her speechlessly. He did not know what this little girl was up to. Faced with Xiao Chen's gaze, the anger in Gu Lingyao's heart quickly dissipated. She did not dare to look at Xiao Chen as if she had done something wrong. "You can go, I'm a little tired, As she spoke, Gu Lingyao personally pushed Xiao Chen out of the courtyard. Then, Gu Lingyao closed the courtyard door with a bang. After being reprimanded for no reason, and then being chased out for no reason, Xiao Chen stood outside the courtyard door with a helpless and puzzled expression. What was this woman trying to do? Originally, he wanted to have a good talk with Gu Lingyao, but it seemed impossible now. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Chen could only turn around and leave, thinking that he would come back tomorrow. After Xiao Chen left, Gu Lingyao, who was in the courtyard, was still blushing. Her mind was in a mess, and all kinds of emotions uncontrollably surfaced in her heart. Facing the engagement with Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao was nervous and conflicted. However, when Xiao Chun said those words, and when she heard that Xiao Chun did not want to be engaged to her, Gu Lingyao did not know why, but she felt unhappy in her heart. She was angry, but more than that, she was sad and disappointed. After letting her imagination run wild in the courtyard for a long time, Gu Lingyao finally pouted, as if to comfort herself. Stupid Xiao Chun, ugly Xiao Chun, what do you mean by this? I haven't even done anything yet, and you're already unwilling. Fine, since you don't want to be engaged to me, then I'll insist on being engaged to you. Let's see what you can do about it, She found a way out for herself. With this thought, Gu Lingyao found that she actually felt much better. Nodding slightly, Gu Lingyao murmured softly, "Yes, I want to be engaged to you. Let's see what you can do about it, ugly Xiao Chun." He was completely unaware of Gu Lingyao's thoughts. If he knew, Xiao Chun would probably be depressed to death. He originally wanted to make Gu Lingyao give up on the engagement, but who would have thought that this conversation would instead make Gu Lingyao make up her mind? He tried to be clever, but ended up making a fool of himself. The next day, which was the last day before the engagement, Xiao Chun arrived at Gu Lingyao's residence early in the morning. However, he learned that Gu Lingyao did not want to see him. Moreover, this girl even activated the talisman array around Gu Lingyao's courtyard. It was obvious that she was afraid that he would sneak in. Xiao Chun was completely speechless when he saw that the courtyard was heavily guarded and looked as if it was facing a formidable enemy. What was this girl trying to do? Was she going to fight a war? Not only did she activate the defensive array, she even activated the offensive array. Without a doubt, as long as he dared to take a step into the courtyard, he would definitely not end up well. This was because the talisman array in Gu Lingyao's courtyard was personally set up by Gu Qi. It was a top-grade talisman array and was far from something that Xiao Chun could break through with his current cultivation. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not a talisman array master. He knew nothing about breaking arrays. Gu Lingyao was determined not to see him. He waited outside the courtyard for more than 4 hours, but there was still nothing he could do. Tomorrow was the day of the engagement. Xiao Chun was secretly anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Just like that, Xiao Chun waited outside Gu Lingyao's courtyard for an entire day. However, in the end, he did not see Gu Lingyao. The next morning, when the sky had just brightened, Tian Guichuan arrived at Xiao Chun's residence. Without any explanation, he directly brought Xiao Chun to the main hall of the Equal Sky sect. Being caught by Tian Guichuan and having his cultivation sealed, Xiao Chun asked with a tearless cry, "Elder Tian, what are you doing?" "Young Master Xiao, please don't blame me. This old man is also under the orders of the sect master to invite you. The sect master guessed that you would not be very cooperative, so he specially ordered this old man to bring you here by force and seal your cultivation to prevent you from escaping." Tian Guichuan replied indifferently to Xiao Chun's question. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not know what to say. Escape? He had indeed thought of running, but where could he run to? Moreover, could he escape in the Equal Sky sect? He could be considered to have completely realized that Gu Qi was forcing him to do something beyond his ability. Regardless of whether he wanted to or not, Gu Qi did not care about his feelings at all. Under Tian Guichuan's lead, Xiao Chun quickly arrived at the main hall of the Equal Sky sect. Because today was the day of the engagement of Gu Qi's only daughter, Gu Lingyao, it was naturally a major event to the Equal Sky sect. So, many people had arrived at the main hall early in the morning. Of course, all of them were the true higher-ups and core figures of the Equal Sky sect. All the Dao Emperor Realm elders were present. There were a total of 12 of them. At the same time, their disciples were present as well. In other words, they were the geniuses and geniuses of the younger generation of the Equal Sky sect. Besides that, there were also some deacons with great authority present. There were already over 1,000 people gathered in the main hall. Everyone was seated on cushions on both sides of the hall. At the same time, there was a short table placed before every single one of them. On the table were exquisite snacks, spirit fruits, fine wine, and some side dishes. Chapter 521. It could be said that almost all the experts above the Tao King realm of the celestial equal sect were present. Apart from them, there were also the young geniuses. Nearly 1,000 people had gathered in the main hall. They were chatting and drinking while waiting for the engagement ceremony to begin. However, compared to the older generation, the younger generation's geniuses all had ugly expressions on their faces. However, they did not dare to act out. As long as one was a disciple of the celestial equal sect, there was no one who didn't admire Gu Lingyao. Needless to say, her looks and talent went without saying. Moreover, Gu Lingyao had a half-saint father. If one could get Gu Lingyao, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that one would soar to the sky. Because of this, many disciples admired Gu Lingyao, especially the young geniuses present. But now, the goddess that they had been protecting had been taken by someone else. Moreover, it was a guy who came out of nowhere. How could they not be angry? However, they had been warned by their respective masters beforehand that no matter how angry they weren't allowed to cause trouble today. As a result, these young geniuses were naturally suppressing the anger in their hearts. As everyone waited, Xiao Chan was finally brought out of the main hall by Tiang Guichuan. At the same time, Gu Qi's figure appeared out of thin air on the main seat in the main hall. When Gu Qi appeared, the elders and deacons below him stood up and bowed. "Greetings, sect master." "Ha, there's no need to be so polite. Today is the engagement of my daughter, Gu Lingyao, and Xiao Chun. There's no need to be restrained. You must have a few drinks." Gu Qi laughed heartily in the face of everyone's greetings. After disappearing for 3 days, Gu Qi finally appeared. Upon hearing Gu Qi's words, the elders also smiled and congratulated him. "Congratulations to the sect master for getting a good son-in-law." "Haha, good. The atmosphere was very lively. However, no one knew what everyone was thinking behind the smiles. Gu Qi's appearance meant that the engagement ceremony had officially begun. Xiao Chun, who was outside the main hall, walked slowly into the main hall accompanied by Tiang Guichuan. Although he said that he was accompanying Xiao Chun, he was actually guarding him. According to Gu Qi, he was preventing Xiao Chun from running away. Moreover, just a moment ago, Xiao Chun was taken to a room beside the main hall by Tiang Guichuan and forced to change into a bright red robe. This was the first time in his life that he had been stripped naked by a man. Moreover, it was an old man. Although this old man didn't do anything to him, Xiao Chun was extremely unhappy in his heart. He thought fiercely, "Old man, remember this. One day, if I don't see you stripped naked and throw you onto the Tianqi Sect Square, I won't hand you over to Xiao Chun." He was dressed in a long red robe, but his expression was like that of a wronged wife. He walked into the main hall. The moment Xiao Chun appeared, everyone's eyes naturally focused on Xiao Chun. The experts of the older generation were curious, while the young geniuses of the younger generation were spitting fire from their eyes. Facing everyone's gazes, Xiao Chun wanted to shout, "Damn it, I didn't do it willingly. Why are you all looking at me like that?" He was extremely depressed. However, the moment Xiao Chun entered the main hall, he found that his whole body was instantly enveloped by an inexplicable force. Under this force, Xiao Chun couldn't control his body at all. His mouth couldn't speak, and his movements seemed to be controlled by someone. Only his eyes could still move according to his will. He looked at Gu Qi, who was sitting on the main seat. Xiao Chun was sure that this was the doing of that old man, Gu Qi. The force that enveloped him was the power of laws, and the only one present who could use the power of laws was Gu Qi, a half-step saint expert. Of course, Xiao Chun didn't know that Gu Qi wasn't a half-step saint expert, but a true saint expert. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a half-step saint expert to control a person's body without anyone noticing. After manipulating Xiao Chun step by step to the center of the main hall, Gu Qi laughed as if nothing had happened. "Haha, Xiao Chun's son-in-law. After today, you and I will be a family. I hope that you will treat Ling Yao well in the future. Well, ask Ling Yao to come out." Gu Qi didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to reply and answered his own question. Seeing this, Xiao Chun simply wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. What trap? One old trap. Why don't you ask me first if you have the ability? If Gu Qi could ask Xiao Qian for his own opinion, Xiao Qian would definitely tell him loudly that he didn't want to. Unfortunately, Gu Qi obviously didn't intend to do so. Perhaps it was because Gu Qi wanted to guard against Xiao Qian, but he had simplified the engagement ceremony a lot. Very soon, Gu Lingyao, who was wearing a long red dress, walked in accompanied by several maids. Because it was not a wedding, Gu Lingyao did not wear a phoenix coronet, a red veil, or a red veil. Gu Lingyao came to Xiao Qian's side and glared fiercely at Xiao Qian. However, when she looked at Xiao Qian, a trace of embarrassment flashed across Gu Lingyao's eyes. The two of them stood side by side. Looking at Gu Lingyao, all the young geniuses present wanted to beat their chests and stamp their feet. They looked up to the sky and sighed, "Alas, the heavens are blind. My goddess." However, because their master was beside them, these guys didn't dare to make the slightest move. Looking at Xiao Qian and Gu Lingyao, Gu Qi shouted loudly, "Bring the wine." Then two maids served 2 cups of wine to the two of them. At the same time, Gu Qi continued, "After drinking this cup of wine, the marriage between the two of you is set. We'll find an auspicious day to get married in the future." Without giving Xiao Qian any chance, as soon as Gu Qi finished speaking, Xiao Qian's body began to move uncontrollably. First, he saluted Gu Lingyao. Then, he raised his head and drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. In the face of the power of the laws, Xiao Qian didn't have the slightest ability to resist. He couldn't even form a thought. After being forced to drink the wine, Gu Qi asked someone to send Xiao Qian and Gu Lingyao away. As for the toast, there was no need. Anyway, what was done couldn't be undone. Xiao Qian was useless now. In the eyes of outsiders, Gu Lingyao was Xiao Qian's fiancée. After sending off Xiao Qian and Gu Lingyao, Gu Qi heaved a sigh of relief. It was finally over. Then, everyone drank to their heart's content in the main hall. The main hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Meanwhile, at Gu Lingyao's residence, Xiao Qian was sent back by Tiang Wuchuan. Of course, Gu Lingyao also came along. After removing the seal on Xiao Qian's body, Tiang Wuchuan said before leaving, "You and Lingyao are already engaged. According to the sect master's wishes, the residence next door has been taken back. You can live with Lingyao in the future." Chapter 522. My residence has been taken back. I'll be living with Gu Lingyao in the future. Xiao Qian's expression changed when he heard this. But before he could say anything, Tiang Wuchuan had already disappeared. Without giving Xiao Qian a chance to speak, Tiang Wuchuan left. Xiao Qian naturally had no choice. He sighed and turned to look at Gu Lingyao's courtyard. Am I going to live here in the future? He didn't see Gu Lingyao. That little girl had rushed into her room and shut herself in. No one knew what she was thinking. Only Xiao Qian was left standing alone in the courtyard. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. At this moment, Gu Lingyao's maid came to Xiao Qian and said, "Young master, the room has been prepared. According to Mrs. Instructions, it's right next to hers." What? Next to Gu Lingyao's room? Xiao Qian was stunned when he heard this. Then, he shook his head and said, "That? Is there no other room? It's almost okay. Is there no other room? That? Young master, the room was arranged by Mississippi. This servant can't make the decision. Why don't you ask, miss?" The maid said awkwardly when she saw that Xiao Qian wanted to change rooms. Gu Lingyao had personally instructed her to arrange Xiao Qian's room. She really didn't dare to change it now. After all, without Gu Lingyao's order, there were naturally extra rooms. Gu Lingyao's residence wasn't unique, but it was enough to accommodate dozens of people. Living next to Gu Lingyao, Xiao Qian walked back to his room helplessly. He didn't know what to say. Gu Qi, Gu Lingyao, are this father and daughter pair trying to play me to death? He thought gloomily. There was no turning back. After all, the engagement ceremony was over. Now, the entire Tianqi sect knew that Xiao Qian was Gu Lingyao's fiancée. Moreover, in order to cut off Xiao Qian's last path of retreat, Gu Qi had announced it to the world. Now, the entire Danyang County knew about this matter. Moonless Empire's imperial capital, heavenly stellar residence. Bai Riyue was sitting in the garden with a touch of anger on her face. Is a good kid, but his lifestyle is too unrestrained. He's only been in the Celestial Equals sect for a few days, and he's already abducted their little princess. Could it be that he played with Shui Ro and Baihua's wives? Sigh. She thought that Xiao Chan was too fickle in love. In this aspect, Xiao Chan wasn't as good as his father, Xiao Qing. Look at Xiao Qing. He had been loyal to Bai Riyue his entire life. Even as the head of the Xiao family, Xiao Qing had never thought of finding another woman. Fortunately, Xiao Chen wasn't here. If Xiao Chen knew what Bai Riyue was thinking, Xiao Chan would definitely cry out that he had been wronged. It was simply an unforgivable injustice. Was he the one who kidnapped their little princess? He was completely forced to do something beyond his ability. Even Bai Riyue knew about this matter, let alone others. Crown Prince's Eastern Palace. Chu Wuming was accompanying Wu Yun for a walk in the garden after dealing with political matters. At this time, Wu Yun spoke first. Your Highness, have you heard about young Master Xiao Chen's matter? Haha, you're talking about this matter? I've heard about it. This brother Xiao is really not an ordinary person. Not only is his talent outstanding, but he also has other aspects that are admirable. That Gu Lingyao is the little princess of the Tianqi sect. Her status is so noble that even I wouldn't be able to enter her eyes. But brother Xiao managed to get her in just a few days. Haha. Hearing Wu Yun's words, Chu Wuming laughed loudly. Well, Xiao Chun would not be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Everyone in Danyang County knew about this. Even the Moonless Empire and the Gale Empire had sent congratulatory gifts. They didn't know about the outside world. Of course, even if they knew, what could Xiao Chen do? Could he still explain it clearly now? Even if he had 100 mouths, he probably wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. For 3 days in a row, he lived under the same roof as Gu Lingyao. In these 3 days, Gu Lingyao seemed to be avoiding him. If she could not meet him, she would not. Even if she did meet him, Gu Lingyao would run away immediately. She didn't give Xiao Chen a chance to speak at all. He didn't know what was wrong with this girl. Xiao Chen naturally didn't expect that Gu Lingyao was like this only because of the girl's shyness. After all, no matter how eccentric Gu Lingyao was, she was still an inexperienced girl. Gu Lingyao deliberately avoided Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was also embarrassed to take the initiative to look for her. For a time, the two of them strangely lived under the same roof. 3 days passed. On this day, after Xiao Chen finished a night of cultivation, he pushed open the door and was about to go to the courtyard to practice his swordsmanship. In less than a glance, Xiao Chen saw Gu Qi sitting in the courtyard and drinking tea. Why was this old man here? He was a little resentful. After all this time, he was completely cheated by Gu Qi. Feeling unhappy, Xiao Chen didn't have a good expression. He casually bowed to Gu Qi and said, "Greetings, Sect Master." Naturally, he could see that Xiao Chen was resentful. Gu Qi didn't care. He smiled and said, "You little guy, why do you hate me so much? Don't forget, I'm now your father-in-law. I'm half your father. Do you understand?" He was completely shameless. At the same time, Xiao Chen didn't want to be outdone and said, "Sect Master, it's too early to say that. Lingyao and I are only engaged and not married. If Sect Master insists on saying that I'm her father-in-law, then you have to add the word perspective in front of it." Haha, little guy, you're quite resentful. All right, I'm not here today to bicker with you. The 100 Refinements Valley will open in half a month, and the Sage Sect selection will begin in 2 months. Half a month later, you and Ling Yao will enter the 100 Refinements Valley. I saw that you only mastered 1 heaven-level martial skill during the last grand meeting of the 2 sections. Moreover, this heaven-level martial skill consumes a lot of energy. I'm here today to give you a treasure. Gu Qi didn't continue to argue with Xiao Chen and directly explained his purpose of coming. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. However, he quickly said with a displeased expression, "Give you a treasure? Sect Master, please don't make fun of me, okay? I don't want any treasures. I just hope that Sect Master will be magnanimous." Once bitten, twice shy. Xiao Chen was completely terrified by Gu Qi. Although Gu Qi didn't have any ill intentions towards him, this old guy was simply a person who wouldn't pay for it. In order to live a little longer, Xiao Chen decided to stay away from Gu Qi, this fox. Seeing Xiao Chen's expression as if he was facing a great enemy, even Gu Qi laughed bitterly to himself. Was there a need for this little guy to do that? Wasn't it just forcing you to marry my daughter? Furthermore, I didn't even feel that I was at a loss. I raised such a big girl and gave her to you just like that. Yet, you're still unhappy. Helplessly laughing bitterly, Gu Qi didn't say anything else. He took out a skill transfer jade from his storage ring and directly threw it to Xiao Chen. Then he said, "This is a heaven-level lower-grade sword skill called Square Heaven Sword Shadow. Take it and cultivate." What an ungrateful brat. Chapter 5:23. Gu Qi came here mainly to teach Xiao Chen martial skills. During the two-sex grand meet, Gu Qi had taught Xiao Chen the Tiger Stampede. Xiao Chen had no problems with movement martial skills, but in terms of attacking methods, Gu Qi felt that Xiao Chen paled in comparison. Although Xiao Chen had mastered quite a few martial skills, they were basically all Earth-class martial skills. He only had the Ganjiang Finger Sword as a Heaven-class martial skill. Moreover, the Ganjiang Finger Sword could only be used as a sure-kill move because it consumed too much of the body's spiritual energy. Although Earth-class martial skills were not bad, at Xiao Chen's level, the effects of Earth-class martial skills were not that obvious. They were all geniuses, and without a Heaven-class martial skill, it would be difficult to gain an advantage in battle. Therefore, Gu Qi taught Xiao Chen the Heaven-class low-grade martial skill, Square Heaven Sword Shadow. The Square Heaven Sword Shadow was not a martial skill of the Celestial Equals sect, but Gu Qi's personal collection. He gave it to Xiao Chen without hesitation, which showed how much Gu Qi valued Xiao Chen. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Qi left without waiting for Xiao Chen's reply. Holding the technique relaying jade in his hand, Xiao Chen did not know what to say. His cheap father-in-law was not that bad. At least he treated him well. Without hesitation, Xiao Chen went back to his room and used the technique relaying jade that recorded the Square Heaven Sword Shadow. A huge amount of information flowed into Xiao Chen's mind. This was the cultivation method of the Square Heaven Sword Shadow. It had to be said that as a Heaven-class martial skill, even if it was only a low-grade one, the power of the Square Heaven Sword Shadow was far from what an Earth-class martial skill could compare to. Moreover, the Square Heaven Sword Shadow and the Ganjiang Finger Sword could be said to complement each other. The Ganjiang Finger Sword focused on a sure-kill move, so when the finger was used, the spiritual energy in the body would be consumed by more than half. However, the Square Heaven Sword Shadow was different. In a fight, the Square Heaven Sword Shadow was obviously stronger than the Ganjiang Finger Sword. With both the Square Heaven Sword Shadow and the Ganjiang Finger Sword, Xiao Chen could use the Square Heaven Sword Shadow to fight with his enemies in the future, then find an opportunity to use the Ganjiang Finger Sword to kill him in one blow. It was very suitable for Xiao Chen's current situation. It was not hard to guess that this Sky Sword Shadow was probably a heaven-grade martial art technique that Gu Qi had specially chosen for Xiao Chen. It was also the type of heaven-grade martial art technique that Xiao Chen needed the most at the moment. After obtaining the Square Heaven Sword Shadow from Gu Qi, his father-in-law, there was still half a month before the opening of the 100 Refinements Valley. According to Xiao Chen's understanding, the 100 Refinements Valley would open for about a month, and then it would be the Sage Sect selection. Therefore, in the half a month before the opening of the 100 Refinements Valley, Xiao Chen planned to put all his attention on the Square Heaven Sword Shadow and strive to successfully cultivate it. Time passed slowly as he concentrated on cultivating in Gu Lingyao's residence. In this half a month, Gu Lingyao also mysteriously disappeared and did not show up. Xiao Chen was not worried about this, and he was even happy to be free. After all, the matter between him and Gu Lingyao was very awkward. Now, facing Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen did not know what to say. He was not worried that Gu Lingyao would be in any danger. He guessed that Gu Lingyao must have been taken away by Gu Qi. In order to prepare for the 100 Refinements Valley and the Sage Sex election, Gu Qi would naturally train Gu Lingyao personally. After all, she was his only daughter, and Gu Lingyao's talent was not bad. The two of them cultivated separately. At the same time, Gu Qi also sent over many elixirs for cultivation. Every other day, Gu Qi would even personally prepare a medicinal bath for Xiao Chun to make Xiao Chen's body stronger. Gu Qi valued Xiao Chun no less than his own daughter, Gu Lingyao. And it was with Gu Qi's help that Xiao Chen's cultivation was still rising steadily, even though he put all his attention on cultivating the square heaven sword shadow. After 10 whole days, Xiao Chun had already grasped the basics of the square heaven sword shadow. He was only one step away from reaching the entry realm. The entry realm should not be underestimated. Although it was only the first realm of the martial technique, Xiao Chun was able to reach this step in 10 days. This was already embarrassing. Even Gu Qi could not help but be surprised at Xiao Chen's talent. This was because even when Gu Qi cultivated the square heaven sword shadow, he took 2 whole months to reach the entry realm. Xiao Chun, on the other hand, probably needed 2 or 3 days at most to break through to the entry realm. The difference between them was obvious. Xiao Chen's cultivation speed shocked Gu Qi. Of course, the better Xiao Chun performed, the more gratified Gu Qi would be. This was because only when Xiao Chun was strong enough, he could help in the future and protect Gu Lingyao. This was also Gu Qi's original intention for forcing the two of them to be engaged. As Gu Qi expected, after 2 days, Xiao Chun really succeeded in cultivating the square heaven sword shadow to the entry realm. The square heaven sword shadow was all about speed. There were no fancy moves. Every thrust of the sword was about speed. As the saying goes, speed is invincible in the world of martial arts. When one's speed reached the extreme, one thrust of the sword could transform into a sky full of sword shadows. It was impossible for the opponent to react in time and be injured. In the courtyard, Xiao Chun was constantly practicing the moves of the square heaven sword shadow. The scarlet heaven sword in his hand was constantly thrusting out. Countless sword shadows enveloped Xiao Chen's surroundings, as if it was a space of its own. One could imagine that if the opponent was trapped in this space, it would definitely be difficult for them to resist. Of course, these sword shadows were illusory because the speed had reached a certain limit. They were real and illusory, so people did not know how to guard against them. After a round of practice, Xiao Chun stopped his movements. His forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Xiao Chun let out a sigh and shook his head helplessly with a bitter smile. It seems like it's impossible to break through the square heaven sword shadow to the entry realm in a short period of time. Forget it. I'll see if there's a chance to break through in the 100 Refinements Valley. But this scarlet heaven sword is a little useless to me now. It would be difficult to break through the square heaven sword shadow in a short period of time. Besides, this scarlet heaven sword was not of much help to Xiao Chen now. As Xiao Chen's first treasured sword, the scarlet heaven sword had accompanied Xiao Chun through many trials and tribulations. As Xiao Chun improved, the scarlet heaven sword also gradually showed signs of fatigue. Besides, the scarlet heaven sword was obviously not the best choice in Xiao Chen's hands. The high-grade treasured sword, Ink Dragon, was now the most suitable sword for Xiao Chun. It was no longer difficult for Xiao Chun to display the power of the Ink Dragon sword like before. As his cultivation base continued to break through, Xiao Chun could now completely control the Ink Dragon sword. Compared to the Scarlet Heaven sword, the Ink Dragon sword was obviously more powerful. The two were simply incomparable. Xiao Chun looked at the Scarlet Heaven sword in his hand with a gentle expression. Since the Scarlet Heaven sword was already useless to him, he could totally let the Heaven's Path sword embryo devour it. However, Xiao Chun was reluctant to do so. After some thought, Xiao Chun finally gave up on the idea of letting the Heaven's Path sword embryo devour the Scarlet Heaven sword. Forget it. Although you can't help me much now, it's better for you to stay by my side. Chapter 524. As Xiao Qian's first treasured sword, Xiao Qian naturally had deep feelings for Scarlet Heaven Sword. Therefore, even though it was already very difficult for Scarlet Heaven Sword to keep up with his footsteps, Xiao Qian still wanted to keep Scarlet Heaven Sword by his side. As he gently stroked Scarlet Heaven Sword's blade, as if it could sense Xiao Qian's thoughts, Scarlet Heaven Sword let out a series of sword cries. This sound seemed to be a sorrowful howl, but also seemed to be cheering. Sorrowful because Scarlet Heaven Sword knew that it could no longer accompany Xiao Qian. Happy because, even so, Xiao Qian still had no intention of giving up on it. Sensing the change in Scarlet Heaven Sword, Xiao Qian smiled slightly. Don't worry, Xiao Qian, will never disgrace the sword in my hand. You're like this, and so is the Black Dragon Sword. With that, Xiao Qian put Scarlet Heaven Sword into his storage ring. At the same time, Gu Lingyao, who had disappeared for more than 10 days, finally returned. However, when he saw Xiao Qian at the door of the courtyard, Gu Lingyao blushed and ran back to his room without giving Xiao Qian a chance to speak. Originally, Xiao Qian wanted to greet him out of politeness, but when he saw this scene, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Ever since the engagement, Gu Lingyao seemed to have completely changed into a different person. Sometimes, Xiao Qian was simply a little confused. Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about Gu Lingyao. After all, Xiao Qian did not have a good way to deal with this matter. The time for the 100 Refinements Valley to open was getting closer and closer. During this period of time, all the young geniuses and prodigies of the Tianqi sect were also cultivating with all their might. In the Tianqi sect, if the Tiger Stampede was the sect's ultimate technique, then the 100 Refinements Valley was the foundation of the Tianqi sect. The 100 Refinements Valley was brought here by Gu Qi. No one knew the origin of the 100 Refinements Valley, nor did they know what method Gu Qi had used to imprison the 100 Refinements Valley in an independent space within the Celestial Equal Sect. It was precisely because of the 100 Refinements Valley that Gu Qi had established the Celestial Equal Sect. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that the 100 Refinements Valley was the foundation of the Celestial Equal Sect. To the Celestial Equal Sect, the importance of the 100 Refinements Valley was number one. At the same time, every single disciple of the Celestial Equal Sect dreamed of entering the 100 Refinements Valley one day because they could obtain unimaginable benefits there. However, if they wanted to obtain benefits, they had to possess the corresponding strength. Therefore, there were only a few Celestial Equal Sect disciples who could enter the 100 Refinements Valley. At the very least, they had to reach the level of a top prodigy to have the qualifications to enter the 100 Refinements Valley. All the prodigies were preparing to enter the 100 Refinements Valley. It was worth mentioning that Mu Feng had also been accepted as a disciple by Tian Guochuan in the past half a month. Tian Guochuan had personally guided Mu Feng. It was likely that Mu Feng was also going to enter the 100 Refinements Valley. Xiao Qian was not at ease with Mu Feng. Having a master like Tian Guochuan was naturally a good thing for Mu Feng. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. On this morning, as the sun rose, the clear sound of a bell rang in the Celestial Equal Sect. Hearing the sound of the bell, all the disciples of the Celestial Equal Sect revealed envious expressions. Everyone knew that the sound of the bell meant that the 100 Refinements Valley was about to open. The ordinary disciples were extremely envious. Those prodigies had been waiting for this day for a long time. Following the sound of the bell, figures soared into the sky from various parts of the Celestial Equal Sect. They rushed towards the back mountain of the Celestial Equal Sect at an extremely fast speed. The entrance of the 100 Refinements Valley was at the back mountain of the Celestial Equal Sect. Like the other prodigies, Xiao Qian was also preparing to rush to the back mountain. Just as Xiao Qian left his room, Gu Lingyao also walked out of her room. The two of them bumped into each other, and their eyes met. This time, Gu Lingyao did not run away. She only lowered her head with a red face, not daring to look at Xiao Qian. Facing Gu Lingyao's silence, Xiao Qian smiled helplessly. "Let's go together." He could not pretend that he did not see it. Therefore, Xiao Chun took the initiative to invite Gu Lingyao to the back mountain. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Gu Lingyao nodded slightly. Then, the two of them rushed towards the back mountain of the celestial equal sect together. The peak of the back mountain. Although it was called the peak, the entire back mountain seemed to have been cut in half by a sword. The peak was an extremely flat and wide square. This was the entrance to the 100 Refinements Valley. He cut a mountain peak in half with a single sword? What powerful strength! Arriving at the back mountain with Gu Lingyao and looking at the flat peak, Xiao Chun, who was also a sword cultivator, naturally had a different feeling from the others. He secretly exclaimed in his heart, he was definitely a sword master. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to do this. He was a little surprised at who did this. As he sighed inwardly, he slowly landed on the peak of the back mountain. The appearance of Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. Of course, when they looked at Xiao Chun, their eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. Because of Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun had already become the public enemy of all the male disciples of the Celestial Equal Sect. He did not care about these angry gazes. He looked around and found that there were less than 120 people present. These people were probably the prodigies of the Celestial Equal Sect who had entered the 100 Refinements Valley. Don't think that these 100 people were too few. One had to know that back in the heavenly Chan continent, all the prodigies, including the King of Prodigies, only had a little more than 100 people. The Celestial Equal Sect was only a sect, but the number of prodigies of the Celestial Equal Sect was already no less than the heavenly Chin continent. In comparison, one would not feel that these 100 people were too few. Just as Xiao Chun was sizing up the crowd, Mu Feng quickly ran to Xiao Chun and said with a worried expression, "Brother Xiao Chun, you have to be careful when you enter the 100 Refinements Valley later. I heard them say that they will definitely teach you a lesson when they enter the 100 Refinements Valley." They plan to take revenge on him in the 100 Refinements Valley. Hearing Mu Feng's words, Xiao Chun revealed a sneer on his face as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Originally, he did not plan to lower himself to their level. However, since these disciples wanted to provoke him first, Xiao Chun naturally would not allow himself to be captured without a fight. Then, let's see who will teach you a lesson in the end. Xiao Chun was not worried that they would teach him a lesson in the 100 Refinements Valley. In the end, it was still unknown who would teach who a lesson in the end. Nodding to Mu Feng, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "It's fine. I want to see how these guys will teach me a lesson." Just as Xiao Chun and Mu Feng were talking, Gu Qi, Tian Guichuan, and more than 10 elders appeared on the top of the mountain. Standing in front of everyone, Gu Qi scanned the crowd and nodded to Tian Guichuan. Seeing this, Tian Guichuan took a step forward, circulated the spiritual energy in his body, and shouted loudly, "The 100 Refinements Valley is open. The rules are the same as before. It will be open for a month. I hope that this time, you'll be able to create a new record in the 100 Refinements Valley and obtain more benefits to prepare for the upcoming Sage Sect selection." Chapter 525. Tian Guochuan shouted loudly. More than 100 prodigious disciples looked at Tian Guochuan expectantly. They were finally going to open the first secret realm of the Celestial Equal Sect, the 100 Refinements Valley. As his voice faded, Tian Guochuan respectfully retreated behind Gu Qi. Immediately, Gu Qi took out an ancient black token from his storage ring and casually tossed the token high into the air, after which he formed a seal with both of his hands. Immediately, a black light erupted from the black token. Very quickly, within a short span of 10 breaths, the token turned into a black metal door. The black iron gate was very tall, at least 100 meters tall. At the same time, a heavy feeling surged out, causing many of the Supreme Disciples to involuntarily retreat. This aura and pressure. Even Xiao Chun was surprised. The black iron gate slowly opened with a muffled bang. At the same time, Gu Qi said slowly, "Go in. How much you can get will depend on your own abilities." The prodigious disciples didn't hesitate and immediately rushed into the black iron gate. This was the entrance to the 100 Refinements Valley. However, before everyone entered the 100 Refinements Valley, many of them glanced at Xiao Qian with an unfriendly expression when they passed by him. The meaning revealed in their eyes was very clear. These fellows were just as Mu Feng had said. They wanted to deal with him in the 100 Refinements Valley. In the outside world, Xiao Qian was Gu Qi's son-in-law in name. If they wanted to cause trouble for Xiao Qian, they had to consider Gu Qi's attitude. In addition, their masters had repeatedly warned them not to provoke Xiao Qian. Therefore, many of them had been suppressing their anger for the past half a month. Now that they were in the 100 Refinements Valley, without the pressure of Gu Qi and the other elders, they naturally became active. They wanted to teach Xiao Qian a lesson. Naturally, they also knew that Xiao Qian and Gu Lingyao were already engaged. What was done could not be undone. However, this did not stop the jealousy in their hearts. Their thoughts were actually very simple. They did not expect to change anything. They only wanted to beat Xiao Qian up to vent the anger in their hearts, or rather, the jealousy in their hearts. Xiao Qian didn't care about the glares of the prodigious disciples. Since they wanted to make trouble for him, Xiao Qian didn't mind teaching them a lesson. Together with Mu Feng, Xiao Qian entered the 100 Refinements Valley unhurriedly. As for Gu Lingyao, she naturally did not follow Xiao Qian. Instead, she entered the 100 Refinements Valley first with a red face. Very soon, the 100 over prodigious disciples all entered the 100 Refinements Valley. Then, the black metal door closed with a bang. It would only open again a month later. The black metal door stood on the mountain peak. Tian Guichuan revealed a smile as he looked at the tightly shut metal door. Sect leader, it seems that these little fellows still plan to cause trouble for Xiao Qian. You betrothed Lingyao to Xiao Qian. This has caused this little fellow to become the target of public criticism. Tian Guichuan wasn't the only one who knew that many prodigious disciples wanted to cause trouble for Xiao Qian. All the elders present, including Gu Qi, knew that the source of all this was naturally the engagement between Xiao Qian and Gu Lingyao. Gu Qi smiled indifferently when he heard Tian Guichuan's words. These little brats are all arrogant. Since that's the case, it's good to let Xiao Qian teach them a lesson. He wasn't worried about Xiao Qian at all. In Gu Qi's opinion, these little brats were no match for Xiao Qian. An elder laughed when he heard this. Sect leader seems to think highly of Xiao Qian. However, those who entered the 100 Refinements Valley this time are all prodigious disciples. Can Xiao Qian handle their joint attack? Haha, if the son-in-law that I fancy can't even deal with these little brats, then I can only say that I have misjudged him. In this way, Xiao Qian is likely not worthy of my precious daughter. Let's go. The result will naturally be known in a month. The elders didn't think highly of Xiao Qian. After all, no matter how strong Xiao Qian's combat strength was, he would be outnumbered in the face of over 100 prodigious disciples. However, Gu Qi laughed loudly in response. Then, he took the lead and disappeared from the back mountain without any worry. Just as Gu Qi had said, the result would naturally be known in a month's time. Gu Qi had absolute confidence in Xiao Qian. Tian Guichuan and the other elders exchanged glances with each other when they saw this. After which, they also left one after another. They didn't know where Xiao Qian's confidence came from in the face of over 100 prodigious disciples. However, it was useless to think too much about it. Everyone would know the answer in a month's time. After Gu Qi and the other elders left the back mountain, Xiao Qian and the others entered the 100 Refinements Valley through the Black Iron Gate. This was Xiao Qian's second time entering such an independent small space. The first time was when he participated in the Five Elements Tao Palace on the heavenly Qin continent. What a rich power of laws! As soon as they entered the 100 Refinements Valley, the entrance to a valley appeared in front of them. The valley wasn't big, but it was very deep. Standing outside, they couldn't see the environment inside at all. It was pitch black inside. However, Xiao Qian was more concerned about the power of laws in the valley. Although Xiao Qian was unfamiliar with the power of laws, he had clearly sensed it before. However, the power of laws was still too far away for the current Xiao Qian. After all, It was something that only a half-saint could master. The entire 100 Refinements Valley was filled with the power of laws. It was so rich that it made people blush with shame. After looking around, Xiao Qin's gaze finally fell on the entrance to the valley in front of him. He softly muttered to himself, "Rumor has it that the 100 Refinements Valley has 36 layers of heavens. Passing through each layer will allow one to undergo a transformation. When one reaches the final 36 layers, it is said that one will obtain indescribable benefits. Unfortunately, no one has been able to reach the 36th layer since the founding of the Celestial Equal Sect." Xiao Chun naturally had some understanding of the 100 Refinements Valley. There were 36 layers of heavens in the 100 Refinements Valley. Everyone would pass through the first layer one after another. Passing through each layer would allow one to obtain benefits. At this moment, Xiao Chun and the others were standing at the entrance to the 100 Refinements Valley. Entering the valley was the first layer of heavens. Only after passing through the first layer of heavens could one continue to advance. The rules were very simple, but the difficulty couldn't be underestimated. Every time the 100 Refinements Valley opened, most people basically couldn't even pass through the first 10 layers of heavens. While Xiao Chun was sizing up the entrance to the 36th layer of heavens in front of him, the surrounding prodigy disciples also gathered around Xiao Chun with sneers on their faces. Obviously, they wanted to make a move. Before passing through, these guys planned to teach Xiao Chun a lesson. A faint sneer appeared on Xiao Chun's face when he sensed the actions of these prodigy disciples. However, before he could say anything, Gu Lingyao, who had been hiding from him all this while, was the first to stand up and yell angrily. "What are you trying to do? All of you, scram to the side." Chapter 5:26. Gu Lingyao had long known that these fellows harbored ill intentions toward Xiao Chun. Although Gu Lingyao had been deliberately avoiding Xiao Chun during this period of time, this did not mean that she hated Xiao Chun. The reason why Gu Lingyao could avoid Xiao Chun was entirely due to the shyness in her heart. Seeing that these fellows wanted to harm Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao naturally stood out without hesitation and blocked in front of Xiao Chun as she shouted angrily. In the face of Gu Lingyao's rebuke, the prodigy disciple surrounding Xiao Chun had no intention of moving aside. Subsequently, Chao He slowly walked out from the crowd. Currently, the Tianqi sect only had a total of 3 prodigy kings, including a Xiao Chun. One was Gu Lingyao, and the other was Chao He. Xiao Chun was naturally no stranger to her. After all, during the two sects' grand meeting, Xiao Chun had used Wang Huan's identity, and the two of them had interacted quite a bit. However, Xiao Chun was now using his real identity, so Chao He naturally would not have thought that Xiao Chun was Wang Huan. Chao He slowly walked in front of Gu Lingyao and said calmly, "Junior sister Lingyao, everyone has some anger towards Xiao Chun in their hearts. It's not good to not let them vent their anger. I think you shouldn't interfere in this matter." "Chao He, what did you say? Say it again if you dare." Gu Lingyao angrily glared at Chao He. "Sigh, junior sister Lingyao, although I admit that I'm not as strong as you, it's not impossible for me to hold you back. Come, let me see if you've improved during this period of time." In the face of Gu Lingyao's angry rebuke, Chao He knew that it was impossible to persuade her. As such, she could only fight. Chao He holding Gu Lingyao back was something that everyone had long planned. Of course, not all of the prodigy disciples present wanted to teach Xiao Chun a lesson. The female disciples clearly had no intention of interfering. After all, Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao were engaged. It was nothing to them, so they would not be jealous. On the contrary, the few female disciples were all looking curiously at Xiao Chun. Some of them were even whispering amongst themselves, "I'm afraid that Xiao Chun is in trouble today." "I don't think so. Junior sister, didn't you notice that Xiao Chun has been extremely calm from the beginning? It's obvious that he's not worried about what's going to happen next." "Lingyao, I think that Xiao Chun is quite handsome, if it wasn't for the Lingyao world. You little girl, you're really a love-struck fool." The female disciples did not have any hostility toward Xiao Chun. On the contrary, they were very curious. However, Xiao Chun did not care about this. At this moment, Gu Lingyao and Chao He were already engaged in a fierce battle. Chao He was keeping Gu Lingyao busy in the battle, so it was obvious that Gu Lingyao was having a hard time dealing with Chao He. At the same time, Chao He kept luring Gu Lingyao further away, leaving space for Xiao Chun and the other disciples. Seeing that Gu Lingyao was no longer protecting them, a prodigy disciple finally opened his mouth and said, "Xiao Chun, we don't want to do anything to you. However, Junior sister Lingyao is the goddess in our hearts. Since you're engaged to her, we'll naturally be jealous. So, we'll teach you a lesson today to vent our anger. We won't find trouble with you in the future." He was very direct and spoke his mind without hiding anything. Hearing the prodigy disciple's words, Xiao Chun was secretly amused. Of course, he could feel that these guys did not have any killing intent towards him. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "If that's the case, I'll go easy on you." After saying that, Xiao Chun did not wait for the others to reply. He said to Mu Feng, who was standing beside him, "Back off a little." After saying that, Xiao Chun's feet moved, and he directly executed the ferocious tiger stampede. He immediately executed the ferocious tiger stampede. Seeing this, the faces of the surrounding disciples changed slightly. However, before they could recover from their shock, Xiao Chun had already rushed in front of the prodigy disciple who had just spoken. He fiercely threw a punch, which heavily landed on the disciple's face. 2 teeth flew out with fresh blood. With a scream and a punch, the disciple was sent flying by Xiao Chun. After sending one person flying, Xiao Chun did not stop and directly rushed into the crowd. For a moment, the crowd was filled with screams. After executing the ferocious tiger stampede, Xiao Chun's speed could be said to have been raised to the extreme. Ever since he obtained the ferocious tiger stampede during the 2-sex grand meet, Xiao Chun had also cultivated the ferocious tiger stampede to the proficient realm. Therefore, in terms of speed, it was naturally much faster than when he was at the 2-sex grand meet. His figure was like a ghost as he shuttled through the crowd. Wherever Xiao Chun passed, people would be thrown off their feet. What a joke! During this period of time, Xiao Chun had been soaking in a medicinal bath every other day under Gu Qi's special care. His physical body had been raised to an extremely terrifying level. It was not an exaggeration to say that compared to half a month ago, Xiao Chun's physical strength had at least doubled. At the same time, no one knew whether it was because of the medicinal baths that Gu Qi had prepared, but the Dragon Clan's blood essence in Xiao Chun's body was also constantly strengthening his body. With these two factors working together, Xiao Chun was now a human-shaped demonic beast. His physical strength was not any weaker than that of a demonic beast. His strength had increased by a lot. Therefore, when facing these top prodigies and peerless prodigies, Xiao Chun did not even need to use his sword. He only used his fists to beat these guys until they could not fight back. There were no superb martial arts techniques. It was just like a brawl between hooligans. His fists were thrown out without any pattern. However, every punch was difficult for these prodigies to block. At first, these prodigies still joined forces to resist. However, they soon realized that their resistance was a joke in front of Xiao Chun. His terrifying physical body was like a tank that crushed over. This was what the saying, "one force can break 10,000 moves" meant. He did not kill these disciples. After all, they had no intention to kill him. Moreover, they were all disciples of the Tianqi sect. Soon, many of these people would follow him to participate in the sage sect selection. At the same time, now was the beginning of the 100 Refinements Valley. If he crippled these people, it would be equivalent to cutting off their opportunity. It would not be kind to them. However, even though Xiao Chun was being merciful, the pain was still undeniable. Furthermore, Xiao Chun was very particular about his techniques. He would only hurt the skin and flesh without harming the core. However, the pain was unbearable for these genius disciples. In the beginning, the crowd was still unyielding. However, in less than half an hour, they began to beg for mercy. First of all, the people who were beaten up by Xiao Chun were crying for their parents. Senior brother Xiao Chun, we were wrong. We won't dare to do it again. Don't hit us. Really, don't hit us. Ouch, my eyes. Senior brother Xiao Chun, don't hit me. Brother, big brother Xiao Chun, I was wrong. Ah, my nose is broken. It's really broken. Brother, don't hit me. Don't hit me. This is my lifeblood. You can't kick it. Brother. Chapter 5:27. It had only been an hour since Xiao Chen's arrival, and those geniuses who had wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson had already begun to beg for mercy. The disciples who were beaten up by Xiao Chen were all lying on the ground and wailing. Although Xiao Chen did not kill them, and their injuries were not serious, the intense pain on their bodies was real. Moreover, Xiao Chen was extremely particular when he attacked. He controlled the strength of every move. He did not seriously injure these disciples, but the pain was unbearable. The result was completely different from everyone's expectations. Facing Xiao Chen alone, these prodigy disciples did not have the ability to resist at all. Hearing everyone's wailing and begging for mercy, Xiao Chen stopped what he was doing and said with a faint smile on his face, "Do you still want to teach me a lesson? Senior brother Xiao Chen, we won't dare to do it again. We won't dare to do it again. We will follow your lead in the future. We won't dare to do anything if you order us around." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the prodigy disciple lying at Xiao Chen's feet immediately replied, afraid that he would be beaten up again by Xiao Chen if he answered too slowly. "Yes, yes. Senior brother Xiao Chen, no, no, no. Big brother Xiao Chen, we will listen to you in the future. We will do whatever you ask us to do." As the disciple finished speaking, the other prodigy disciples also echoed. They were completely scared. Of course, this was also because there was no enmity between them, so there was no need to risk their lives. Moreover, Xiao Chen was Guqi's prospective son-in-law, so these disciples did not dare to offend Xiao Chen too much. Otherwise, their days in the Tianqi sect would probably not be good in the future. Similarly, Xiao Chen did not kill these prodigy disciples. Firstly, there was no deep enmity. Secondly, it was now the opening period of the 100 Refinements Valley. There was only a month's time. If Xiao Chen crippled these people, it would be equivalent to cutting off their fortune this time. In the world of martial arts, stealing another's fortune was a deep enmity. Moreover, everyone was a disciple of the Tianqi sect, so Xiao Chen did not have to do this at all. Of course, the premise of all this was that these prodigy disciples did not have any killing intent towards him. From the beginning to the end, these people only wanted to teach him a lesson. Therefore, Xiao Chen did this. Dozens of prodigy disciples were lying on the ground. As for the few disciples who were not beaten up by Xiao Chen, they all retreated far away with fear in their eyes. Xiao Chen was simply too powerful. He was simply a monster. He was facing over 100 genius disciples all by himself, yet he was able to crush them all. That's right, it was crushing. He had used the simplest and most direct method to crush all of them. Chao He, who was fighting fiercely with Guling Yao, did not expect the battle to end so quickly. His expression changed slightly. The outcome was completely different from what he had imagined. The battle was over. Chao He naturally had no reason to continue fighting with Guling Yao. Moreover, Chao He's combat strength was not as good as Guling Yao's. If they continued fighting, Chao He would definitely lose. With the intention to retreat, Chao He took the initiative to retreat. However, just as he widened the gap between him and Guling Yao, Xiao Chen suddenly appeared behind Chao He with a harmless smile on his face. "Senior brother Chao He, you see, the others have been beaten up by me. If I don't beat you up, the anger in my chest will really be hard to calm down." His voice was very calm, and there was no trace of anger in it. However, as soon as Xiao Chen's voice fell, Xiao Chen kicked Chao He's lower body. Not only that, after kicking Chao He's lower body, Xiao Chen actually hooked it with force. They were standing behind Chao He, so when Xiao Chen hooked it, everyone felt as if they could hear the sound of eggs breaking. Chao He's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. They were absolutely terrified. As they looked at Chao He, the surrounding geniuses all rejoiced in their hearts. Compared to Chao He, they only felt that they were too lucky. At least, Xiao Chun did not give them such a kick. Will senior brother Chao He be able to do it in the future? I don't know. Looking at Chao He in a daze, many disciples whispered among themselves. Their voices were filled with sympathy, as if they could understand Chao He's current pain. This kick was absolutely painful, but Chao He held back and didn't cry out. It could be seen that this guy's endurance wasn't weak. However, just when everyone thought that it was over, Gu Lingyao came to Chao He's side and ruthlessly kicked Chao He's lower body again. 2 consecutive kicks landed on the same spot, which was the most vulnerable part of a man's body. Chao He endured the first kick, but the second time, he immediately screamed. Ah, my junior sister Lingyao. Who would have thought that Gu Lingyao would be so vicious? Hearing Chao He scream, Gu Lingyao said unhappily, "Who told you to stop this young lady? This kick is the price this young lady has to pay for forgiving you." Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Chao He's head tilted and he fainted. But at the last moment, Chao He really wanted to shout, "This price is too high." Gu Lingyao's kick was even more vicious than Xiao Chen's. The surrounding disciples all sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Xiao Chun looked at Gu Lingyao with a strange expression, secretly feeling sorry for Chao He. I hope this guy can pull through. Sigh. He didn't know if Chao He would still be able to do that in the future after these 2 kicks. Facing Xiao Chen's gaze, the coldness on Gu Lingyao's face quickly dissipated and was replaced by a shy look. Her pretty face blushed, and without waiting for Xiao Chun to say anything, Gu Lingyao quickly ran over. Why did I stand out to help him just now? Will he think that I like him? Gu Lingyao's imagination ran wild as she ran. Xiao Chun didn't treat Gu Lingyao with respect at all. Seeing her leave, Xiao Chun could only helplessly sigh. Then, he swept a glance at the prodigious disciples present and said calmly, "Has the anger in your hearts subsided now?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the prodigious disciples naturally weren't idiots. They knew what he meant and immediately nodded, respectfully replying like chickens pecking at rice. It's gone. Thank you, senior brother Xiao Chun, for showing mercy." "Senior brother Xiao Chun, what are you saying? How can we be angry?" "Senior brother, on the other hand, your anger has subsided, right? If not, we can continue to practice martial arts for senior brother. We only hope that senior brother's anger will vanish. That will be enough for us." They all nodded repeatedly, and some even said such words. Hearing these words, Xiao Chun was stunned. He thought to himself, what kind of genius is this? How could you say such words? Chapter 528. He was definitely a genius. Xiao Chun was no longer angry after hearing the crowd's response. How could he still be angry when faced with such a person who dared to say such things? He nodded slightly and believed that no one would dare to find trouble with him in the future. After all, even a genius disciple had been dealt with by him. As long as the other disciples weren't fools, he believed that they would know what to do. Xiao Chun didn't say anything else. After this farce, he finally had the time to properly size up the entrance of the 100 Refinements Valley. "Xiao Chun, brother." At this moment, Mu Feng also came to Xiao Chen's side and called out with a look of admiration. Upon hearing Mu Feng's words, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Let's go. It's time to enter the 100 Refinements Valley." After saying that, Xiao Chun took the lead and walked into the 100 Refinements Valley while Mu Feng followed closely behind. Watching Xiao Chen's back until Xiao Chun disappeared into the valley's entrance, the numerous genius disciples present all secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then they looked at the unconscious Chao He and revealed a look of sympathy. Chao He was simply too pitiful, especially after Gu Lingyao's kick. Just thinking about it made their hair stand on end. Several Heaven's Pride disciples who had a good relationship with Chao He came to Chao He's side and fed him some healing pills. Then they checked his body. After confirming that there were no problems, These people secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Chowhee's injuries were all superficial. It was likely that she would wake up soon. Moreover, she could continue to roam the 100 Refinement Valley. While everyone was helping Chowhee, Xiao Chun and Mu Feng had already entered the 100 Refinements Valley and arrived at the first heaven. As soon as Xiao Chun entered the 100 Refinements Valley, he felt that he was enveloped by an irresistible power of laws. Then, the scene before his eyes changed. When Xiao Chun returned to his senses again, Mu Feng was no longer there. In front of him was a tall black wall that blocked Xiao Chun's path. Realizing that Mu Feng had disappeared, Xiao Chun looked at the tall black wall in front of him and muttered softly to himself, "It's really mysterious. Will we be separated after entering the 100 Refinements Valley?" If one wanted to obtain benefits in the 100 Refinements Valley, one had to continuously pass through the levels. There were 36 levels in the entire 100 Refinements Valley. The higher the level, the better the rewards. Moreover, in order to ensure that everyone passed through the trials with their own strength, once they enter the 100 Refinements Valley, everyone would be separated and unable to help each other. Looking at the high wall in front of him, Xiao Chun quickly received a message in his mind. It was the requirement to pass the first heaven. With a slight smile on his face, Xiao Chun said faintly, "The first heaven tests one's strength? Interesting." According to the information he had received, the first heaven was a test of strength. As long as he could destroy the black wall in front of him, he would be able to move on to the second heaven. Clenching his fists tightly, Xiao Chun threw a probing punch. In the face of this punch, the black wall did not collapse. It only shook slightly. The black wall was indeed extremely hard. However, after the initial test, Xiao Chun believed that it would not be difficult for him to destroy the black wall with his own strength. Then, Xiao Chun clenched his fists tightly and threw a punch. The black wall began to shake violently. At the same time, Xiao Chun did not have the slightest intention of stopping. He continued to throw several punches. In the end, when Xiao Chun's fifth punch landed, the black wall collapsed with a bang. After the black wall collapsed, Xiao Chun was once again enveloped by the power of the laws. However, this time, in addition to the power of the laws, Xiao Chun also felt an extremely dense spiritual power. This spiritual power was different from ordinary spiritual power. It was as if it had been refined by someone and then forcibly poured into his body. Therefore, in the face of this spiritual power, Xiao Chun did not need to refine it at all. It was very easy for him to absorb it for his own use. At the same time, as this spiritual power continued to pour into his body, Xiao Chun's cultivation also continued to improve. After a quarter of an hour, the spiritual power disappeared, and the power of the laws also slowly dissipated. The scene in front of Xiao Chun began to change again. After successfully making it through the first layer of heaven and regaining his senses, Xiao Chun appeared in the valley. A light gate appeared in front of him again. That was probably the entrance to his second layer of heaven. It seems that every time I break through a heaven, I have time to rest. This is not bad. At least I can control the time. Looking at the entrance to the second heaven in front of him, Xiao Chun said with a chuckle, "There was no mandatory requirement for you to break through. You could completely control the time. In this way, after breaking through a heaven, you would have enough time to adjust your state." This was very good. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Xiao Chun closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing for about a quarter of an hour. During this time, Mu Feng, Gu Lingyao, and other prodigious disciples also broke through the first heaven one after another and appeared in front of Xiao Chun. Everyone also chose to close their eyes and adjust their breathing like Xiao Chun. After a quarter of an hour, Xiao Chun opened his eyes. In this valley, there were already dozens of prodigious disciples gathered. It was obvious that everyone had also broken through the first heaven. The test of the first heaven should not be difficult, so these prodigious disciples were able to break through. However, the further they went, the more difficult it would be. The gap between the prodigious disciples would slowly widen. Glancing at Mu Feng and Gu Lingyao, Xiao Qian saw that they were still adjusting their breathing with their eyes closed. Seeing that they were still adjusting their breathing, Xiao Qian did not disturb them. He got up and walked towards the second heaven. Just like before, after Xiao Qian entered the second heaven, the power of law enveloped Xiao Qian. The surrounding environment began to change constantly. In the end, Xiao Qian appeared in a dense forest. There were dense trees all around. Soon, the requirements of the second heaven test were transmitted to Xiao Qian's mind. The test of the second heaven was speed. After entering the test, there would be countless flying swords shooting from all directions in this dense forest. The examinee could not destroy these flying swords. They could only use their speed to dodge them. At the same time, they would have 3 chances to be hit by the flying swords. Once they were hit by the flying swords 3 times, it would be considered a failure. They would be forcefully sent back to the second heaven, back to the valley from before. Of course, because they were allowed to be hit 3 times, the final reward was different. If they were not hit even once, the reward would naturally be the highest. Every time they were hit, the reward would be reduced by 1 point. After understanding the requirements of the second heaven test, Xiao Qian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Immediately, he heard the sound of wind breaking. Then, a flying sword came from the front towards Xiao Qian like lightning. The speed of the flying sword was very fast. At the same time, the angle was very tricky. In this regard, Xiao Qian did not hesitate. He immediately used the stampede of the tiger. With a sidestep, he skillfully dodged the attack of the flying sword. Chapter 529. It was a single flying sword that came from the front. Naturally, it was not difficult for Xiao Qian to dodge it. However, it was obvious that the assessment in the 100 Refinements Valley would not be so simple. As expected, after Xiao Qian easily dodged the first flying sword, 2 more flying swords shot out from the left and right at the same time. The difficulty kept increasing. After just 15 minutes, the number of flying swords that Xiao Qian faced each time would not be less than a dozen. Dozens of flying swords were constantly shooting towards him from all directions. He did not know when the assessment would end, so Xiao Qian did not dare to be careless. As the number of flying swords increased, it was naturally harder to successfully dodge them. At the same time, as time passed, there would be a few breaths of time after each round of flying sword attacks ended. However, there was no longer a gap now. Xiao Qian used the stampede of the ferocious tiger to evade the attacks. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Qian finally evaded the last flying sword. The power of laws shrouded him again, and at the same time, the pure spiritual power from before reappeared. Compared to the first level of heaven, the rewards of the second level of heaven were obviously more generous. The amount of pure spiritual energy was much more. After passing through 2 levels of heaven in a row, Xiao Qian passed through the second level of heaven and continued to advance into the depths of the valley. After leaving the second level of heaven, Xiao Qian appeared in the valley. In front of him was the light door that led to the 3rd level of heaven. After receiving 2 rewards, he could clearly feel that his cultivation was very close to breaking through again. A hint of excitement flashed in his eyes as he spoke. The rewards of the 100 Refinements Valley are really worthy of their reputation. No wonder the disciples of the celestial equal sect yearn for it so much. As long as you can pass the level here, breaking through your cultivation is not difficult at all. With the existence of the mysterious, pure spiritual energy, I will definitely be able to break through to the lesser perfection, Tao, querying realm after a few more rounds. It is even possible for me to break through consecutively within this month. The 100 Refinements Valley was indeed worthy of the title of the top secret realm of the celestial equal sect. There was a trace of excitement in his heart. He was about to break through. Now, Xiao Qian's cultivation was at the greater perfection, Tao querying realm. If he could break through again, he would be at the lesser perfection, Tao querying realm. Moreover, in Xiao Qian's heart, as long as he could pass all the levels successfully, the lesser perfection, Tao querying realm would not be the end. A total of 36 levels was enough for Xiao Chen's cultivation to break through to the greater perfection Dao querying realm. Of course, all of this was on the premise that Xiao Chen could break through to the greater perfection Dao querying realm. This time, Xiao Chen only rested for 100 breaths. Because he felt that he was about to make a breakthrough, Xiao Chen also increased the speed of his breakthrough. He wanted to make a breakthrough as soon as possible. After all, time was limited. The 100 Refinements Valley would only be open for a month. After 100 breaths, no one else had passed through the second heaven, including Gu Lingyao and Chao He. Without waiting for the rest, Xiao Chun stepped into the third heaven. The third heaven was a test of soul power. For Xiao Chun, this was not difficult at all. Xiao Chun passed the test of the third heaven easily. After receiving another infusion of spiritual power, Xiao Chen's cultivation soared again. He was one step closer to breaking through to the lesser perfection Dao querying realm. After leaving the third heaven, Xiao Chen did not stop this time. Xiao Chen passed the test of soul power easily. Hence, he did not need to stop and rest. He immediately began the test of the fourth heaven. The fourth heaven was a test of battle awareness. Once he entered, Xiao Chen appeared in a dark secret room. At the same time, the spiritual power, physical strength, and soul power in his body were completely confined. At this moment, Xiao Chen was no different from an ordinary person. In addition to the confinement of spiritual power, physical strength, and other warriors' strength, a row of various weapons appeared in front of Xiao Chen. There were spears, sabers, axes, boxing gloves, and of course, long swords. However, these weapons were the most ordinary weapons. Xiao Chen even suspected that these weapons were transformed by the 100 Refinements Valley. After all, the 100 Refinements Valley was too mysterious. Xiao Chen could not understand it. He could only follow the 100 Refinements Valley's requirements to pass the test. With the appearance of these weapons, the test requirements of the fourth heaven were also passed to Xiao Chen. A test of battle awareness. The fourth heaven was a test of a warrior's battle awareness. After knowing this, Xiao Chen naturally chose the long sword without any hesitation. He was a sword cultivator. Besides the sword, Xiao Chen knew nothing about other weapons. Moreover, besides the sword, Xiao Chen was not interested in other weapons. With the long sword in hand, the other weapons quickly disappeared. Then, a stone golem appeared out of thin air in front of Xiao Chen. This stone golem did not have a terrifying aura, and there was nothing different about it. Without any explanation, the stone golem directly attacked Xiao Chen as soon as it appeared. In response, Xiao Chen slashed out with his sword. With a crisp sound, the stone golem took Xiao Chen's sword head-on, but it was unharmed. It's useless. The long sword could not hurt the stone golem at all. Xiao Chen was stunned, but he quickly realized that the fourth heaven was a test of battle awareness. In other words, the stone golem must have a weakness. Only by hitting its weakness could he defeat it. He had to find its weakness. Of course, since it was its weakness, the stone golem would definitely defend tightly. This would test the warrior's battle awareness. How to find the enemy's weakness and think of a way to defeat it at the same time. It was obviously impossible to cause any damage to the stone golem with an ordinary long sword. Only by finding its weakness could he defeat the stone golem. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen no longer chose to attack blindly. Instead, he dodged around. Soon, Xiao Chen found the stone golem's weakness at the back of its waist. He smiled slightly and said, "It hit it quite well." After finding its weakness, the next step was to defeat it. While dodging the stone golem's attacks, Xiao Chen waited for an opportunity. Soon, Xiao Chen seized the gap in the stone golem's attack and stabbed out. The long sword hit the stone golem's back and defeated it directly. After defeating the first stone golem, the test was not over. After the first stone golem fell, 2 more stone golems appeared at the same time. After a bloody battle, Xiao Chen defeated 4 rounds of stone golems before he passed the fourth test. The first round had 1 stone golem, the second round had 2, the third round had 3, and the fourth round had 4. Moreover, the weaknesses of these stone golems were different. However, After a fierce battle, Shao Chun finally succeeded. At the same time, the reward for the fourth heaven fell from the sky. With the infusion of pure spiritual power, Shao Chen's cultivation level broke through with a muffled sound. He finally broke through. After successfully passing the fourth heaven, Shao Chen's cultivation level also broke through from the great success Tao-seeking realm to the minor perfection Tao-seeking realm. Chapter 530. The breakthrough in his cultivation made Shao Chun overjoyed. The 100 Refinements Valley was really amazing. This was the first time in Shao Chen's life that he had made a breakthrough so easily. He did not feel any obstruction at all. It was as easy as eating and drinking water for him to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. He really didn't know where Gu Qi had obtained such a cultivation secret realm like the 100 Refinements Valley. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even the Five Elements Palace, one of the 5 great divine sites of the heavenly Chen continent, couldn't compare to the 100 Refinements Valley. Of course, Shao Chun had only been to the 5 Elements Palace. As for the other 4 great divine sites, Shao Chun hadn't been there yet. However, if he could stop the large-scale attack of the demonic cultivators this time, he would definitely have the opportunity to enter the other 4 great divine sites in the future. After another quarter of an hour, the pure and mysterious spiritual power disappeared along with the power of law. Shao Chun reappeared in the valley, but he had taken another step forward. He had successfully passed the 4th heaven. Among all the people who had entered the 100 Refinements Valley, Shao Chun was now the fastest. As for those who were chasing after Shao Chun, it was naturally Gu Lingyao and Chao He. However, Chao He was one step slower than Gu Lingyao. At this moment, Gu Lingyao had already begun to pass the 4th heaven, while Chao He had only passed the 3rd heaven and had yet to enter the 4th heaven. His cultivation had successfully broken through, and with the help of the mysterious spiritual power, Shao Chen's aura wasn't the slightest bit shaky because he had just broken through. Therefore, he didn't need a rest at all. Shao Chun directly entered the 5th heaven. The difficulty of the first 4th heaven was increasing. However, compared to the 1st heaven, the difficulty of the 4th heaven was at least twice as high. He didn't know what the test of the 5th heaven was. Regarding this, Shao Chun faintly had a trace of expectation in his heart. Soon, Shao Chun entered the 5th layer of heaven. The layout of the 5th layer of heaven was very simple. It was just an arena, and Shao Chun appeared directly on the arena. At the same time, a dark shadow of a human figure appeared in front of Shao Chun. Its face could not be seen clearly, as it was like a shadow. With the appearance of this black figure, the test requirements of the 5th heaven quickly appeared in Shao Chen's mind. The requirement of the 5th heaven was to defeat the black figure in front of him. However, there were many restrictions. First of all, in this battle, Shao Chen's physical strength. Of course, the black figure could only use physical strength to fight with Shao Chun. In other words, the 5th layer of heaven was a test of the limits of the physical body. Under the premise that only the power of the physical body could be used, Shao Chun had to defeat the human-shaped shadow in front of him in order to pass the test. Now that he knew the requirements of the test, the black figure let out a low roar and took the initiative to attack. Like an angry bull, he didn't make any fancy moves. He simply charged straight at Shao Chun. At the same time, facing the attack of the black figure, Shao Chun didn't dodge. Instead, he punched out with both fists and met the black figure head-on. After a head-on collision, Shao Chun only felt that the black figure's strength was no weaker than his. In a physical confrontation, he couldn't gain the slightest advantage. This guy, could it be? He guessed that the black figure's strength was probably based on his physical strength. They were on par with each other. Could it be that the 5th heaven would adjust the strength of the challengers according to their physical strength? No matter who entered the 5th layer of heaven, the strength of the human-shaped shadow would be different. The stronger one's physical strength, the stronger the human-shaped shadow would be. After guessing this, it seemed that the 100 Refinements Valley was really getting more and more difficult. After a bitter battle, Shao Chun successfully defeated the black figure and passed the fifth heaven. The battle was very intense, and Shao Chun had consumed a lot of energy. Therefore, after passing through the first 5 layers of heaven, Shao Chun rested for a whole hour before entering the 6th layer of heaven. The further he went, the more difficult the 100 Refinements Valley became. From the 5th heaven onwards, Shao Chun had to face one bitter battle after another. The 5th heaven was a test of physical strength. The 6th heaven was a test of speed. The 7th heaven was a test of soul power. And the 8th heaven was a test of combat awareness. His opponents were all the black figures whose appearances couldn't be seen clearly. During the test, except for the test, Shao Chun's other strengths were completely sealed. For example, in the 5th heaven, Shao Chun could only use his physical strength. In the 6th heaven, Shao Chun could only use his speed. In the 7th heaven, he could only use his soul power. In the 8th heaven, there was nothing. He could only rely on his combat awareness to fight the black figure. 4 layers of heaven in a row represented 4 extremely difficult battles. To put it bluntly, the human-shaped shadows of these 4 layers of heaven were designed according to Shao Chun's own abilities, so it would not be easy to beat them. After 2 days, Shao Chun successfully passed the 8th heaven. After the battle in the 8th heaven, Shao Chun's aura was a little weak. He sat cross-legged in the valley. After swallowing a medicinal pill, Shao Chun closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. At the same time that Shao Chun successfully passed the 8th heaven, in the main courtyard where Gucci lived, a faint smile hung on his face as he looked towards the direction of the back mountain. There was a black door towering in the sky. At the same time, there were lines on the black door. If one observed carefully, under the division of the lines, the black door was divided into 36 sections from bottom to top. At the same time, light dots flashed on the door. These light dots represented the genius disciples who had entered the 100 Refinements Valley, and the 36 sections on the black door represented the 36 heavens of the 100 Refinements Valley. At this moment, these light dots were of different heights. Through these light dots, the people in the outside world could determine the situation of everyone in the 100 Refinements Valley. The highest light dot appeared between the 8th heaven and the 9th heaven. This meant that this person had passed the 8th heaven, but had yet to begin the 9th heaven. Looking at the highest light dot, Gucci was certain that this person was Shao Chun. At this moment, Shao Chun was far ahead in the 100 Refinements Valley. Gucci said faintly with a faint smile on his face, "It's already the 8th heaven? Not bad, not bad." However, the real assessment of the 100 Refinements Valley is coming next. Gucci was not the only one who had been paying attention to the situation in the 100 Refinements Valley. The other elders were the same. It could even be said that the gazes of everyone in the Celestial Equal sect were focused on the black door at the back of the mountain. There were people guarding the back of the mountain at almost every moment, reporting the situation in the 100 Refinements Valley to the disciples of the Celestial Equal sect. The situation in the 100 Refinements Valley was constantly updated. At the same time, the news that someone had passed the 8th heaven in 2 days quickly spread in the Tianqi sect. Chapter 531. The news that someone had passed through the 8th heaven in 2 days spread like wildfire in the Tianqi sect. It couldn't be helped. Every time the 100 Refinements Valley opened, it was undoubtedly the most important event in the Tianqi sect. At the same time, the 100 Refinements Valley's ranking had also become the most direct reflection of the sect's ranking. Every time the 100 Refinements Valley ended, the person with the best result would be recognized as the strongest person by all the disciples of the Tianqi sect. And now, Shao Chun had passed through the 8th heaven in 2 days. Such speed could be said to be unprecedented. At least, no one had been able to do it before. Because the light spots on the black door couldn't determine who the person who had passed through the 8th heaven was, many disciples of the Tianqi sect began an intense discussion about the person's identity. Of course, among the many disciples, there were only 2 people who were most likely to be the person. They were Gu Lingyao and Chao He. After all, both of them were kings of pride. Between the two of them, Gu Lingyao's strength was obviously stronger than Qiao He's. Therefore, most of the disciples believed that the person who had passed through the 8th heaven in 2 days was definitely Gu Lingyao. Gu Lingyao and Qiao He had the most supporters, but there were also exceptions. A very small number of disciples believed that the person could also be Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun was Gu Lingyao's fiancé. Gu Qi had personally sanctioned the marriage. In addition, although the crowd didn't know much about Xiao Chun, the fact that he had easily defeated hundreds of disciples was enough to prove that Xiao Chun was extraordinary. Therefore, Xiao Chun could also be the person who had passed through the 8th heaven. Xiao Chun was very mysterious. It was precisely because of this that people couldn't see through him. They also didn't know how strong Xiao Chun was, or if he was stronger than Gu Lingyao. However, it was undeniable that if Xiao Chun was just an ordinary person, Gu Qi would definitely not have sanctioned the marriage. A small number of people chose to support Xiao Chun. This was probably something that no one had expected. There were actually people who would support Xiao Chun. The Tianqi sect was in a heated discussion about the 100 Refinements Valley. In the Tianqi sect, there were 2 people who could be sure that Xiao Chun was the person who had passed through the 8th heaven. They were Gu Lingyao and Qiao He. The 2 of them followed closely behind Xiao Chun. However, no matter how hard they tried, they were still unable to catch up to Xiao Chun's progress. This made them feel helpless and bitter. Ugly Xiao Chun. Gu Lingyao's test. Although the test of each heaven was not simple, and the further one went, it was undeniable that the 100 Refinements Valley could allow one to break through quickly without any side effects. This was the most important thing. There was no doubt that as long as he could persevere, it was not impossible for him to break through 2 small realms in a month and reach the perfected Dao querying realm. Breaking through 2 small realms in a month at the Dao querying realm. This speed could be said to be shocking. If it was in the outside world, even with Xiao Chen's talent and various cultivation resources, Xiao Chun would definitely not be able to do it. However, he could do it in the 100 Refinements Valley. This was the horror of a high-class cultivation mystic realm. It was far from being comparable to the premise of elixirs. At the same time, this was also the most fundamental reason why those sage sects were so powerful. This was because elixirs could be obtained as long as one had spiritual stones. However, it was impossible for cultivation mystic realms to be leaked. One could only enter the mystic realms to cultivate after becoming a disciple of a sage sect and reaching a certain level. Therefore, sage sects often placed great importance on cultivation mystic realms. This was the foundation of any powerful sect. No one in the 100 Refinements Valley was disappointed by Xiao Chun. After teasing him for 2 hours, Xiao Chun slowly opened his eyes. Then, he continued to break through without stopping and entered the 9th heaven. The difficulty of the previous 8 heavens was constantly increasing. Naturally, it was the same for the 9th heaven. Moreover, as Gu Qi had said, the 9th heaven was the beginning of the real assessment of the 100 Refinements Valley. After Xiao Chun entered the 9th heaven, a person who looked exactly like him appeared in front of Xiao Chun. It could be said that this was another version of himself. Cultivation, aura, appearance, all aspects were exactly the same as Xiao Chun. It was as if he was looking into a mirror. As the other version of himself appeared, the requirements of the 9th stage also appeared in Xiao Chun's mind. The requirements of the 9th stage were very simple. Other than not being able to rely on external forces, as long as one could defeat the other version of himself in front of him, it would be considered a success. It was a very simple and violent requirement. However, the difficulty was actually very high. In other words, Xiao Chun had to surpass his own limits. Otherwise, how could he possibly defeat himself? Without giving Xiao Chun much time to react, the other version of himself took the initiative to attack Xiao Chun. The sword in his hand was the Black Dragon Sword. Facing the attack of the other version of himself, Xiao Chun did not dare to be careless. He directly took out the Black Dragon Sword, and the 2 of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. The 2 people who looked exactly the same held the same sword and fought fiercely. After a fierce battle, Xiao Chen also confirmed that the other version of himself in front of him was indeed not to be underestimated. In all aspects, it was almost exactly the same as him. There was not the slightest difference. Thus, it was not an easy task to defeat it. The fierce battle continued. In the end, Xiao Chen did not remember how long it took, but he finally passed the ninth heaven. It was indeed a very difficult battle, but he finally succeeded. With the help of elixirs, Xiao Chen used more than 2 hours to recover his condition to the peak. Then, he strode into the 10th heaven. Like the ninth heaven, the opponent in the 10th heaven was also himself. However, compared to the ninth heaven, the other version of himself in the 10th heaven was stronger. Helplessly laughing bitterly, Xiao Chen said unhappily, "Do I have to fight with myself in the following tests?" He felt a little helpless, but unfortunately, Xiao Chen was right. That's right. Starting from the ninth heaven, the following tests were all about fighting with oneself and constantly breaking through one's own limits. Facing an increasingly stronger version of oneself, one could only continue to move forward by defeating it. Of course, while constantly defeating oneself, Xiao Chen's body would also become weaker because every time one had to break through one's own limits to be able to defeat oneself. In the following time, Xiao Chen advanced triumphantly. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 days had passed. Xiao Chen also successfully arrived at the 30th heaven of the 100 Refinements Valley. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.